We're in a pandemic, and now they're trying to get people to come. So
good point. You know, it'd be cool is if like at the booth, you know, the sponsor, you walk through the sponsors room and like, what if Fidelity is like handing out the vaccine or something? Like that's their tchotchke.
Syringes look like San Francisco.
That should definitely be something we do at our first conference.
Oh, let's do alcohol syringes. Syringes.
Anybody lets the Retireholics vaccine them, you're in a lot of trouble.
Hackle says vodka vaccines.
Vaccines. I love it.
Should be like, is it safe to inject natty ice into your vein? I don't know. We'll find out.
We really should get the Jello shot syringes. Just a couple of them for the first conference.
Oh, that's a thing. That's a thing, huh? A syringe Jello shot.
Yeah, you never seen those at the bars? I'm kind of older, but you're not that old.
No, I'm not that hip.
Seems like that would hurt.
I was gonna say we've been out of the bar scene for a long time, Justin.
Yeah, Hackler. I know the under over is 3.5, but Josh has like purposely been training to not say it. So
I'm on lockdown.
Weak.
Pay up, JD.
Weak.
Mark, welcome.
Boys. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
We can be relentless sometimes, Josh.
Well, yes, I can see that.
What happened?
Nothing.
He likes
Mark's name.
I feel like Josh has a dry sense of humor. I think he's going to get along just fine for the next hour and a half.
2 hours.
Is that a bathrobe you're rocking right now?
I'm just saying.
Steal that from a hotel?
I wrote a book yesterday. So
did you?
Ask me about it.
You know, Josh doesn't.
You need to proofread JD's LinkedIn posts.
You know, Josh doesn't know shit about our show. Like he's never paid attention to it. He's like, "Is that a bathrobe you're wearing? What the fuck?" And then he's like, all kinds of stupid questions he has. He's never watched the show. I'm not sure why we invited him on.
Because he invited you on, and you guys had lively banter, JD.
I'm actually
good banter.
I'm actually a huge fan. I listened to his stuff, and I should probably save this for the show, but I like his thoughts. I think he's well-spoken. I think he, as an interviewer, he asks questions that me at home want to hear as I'm listening. And he's kind of brave with some of them at times. You know, he's asking a question that he wants to know as opposed to maybe what the guest wants to tell him. And he also doesn't mind talking over his guest with his own opinions, which many would say is a negative.
You guys kept going back and forth.
But I enjoy it. I'm like, because I like hearing his thoughts too. So anyways, I'm a fan.
So JD hops on the podcast before we're recording. He's like, so are we just like catching up? Like what's going on? I'm like, no, we're recording the podcast. And he's like, oh,
shit.
Kind of forgot about that.
All right.
I didn't make that note in my Outlook.
Justin, I was about to ask the same question. Josh, what's the 16 jersey in the background?
So that is my college baseball jersey. And then the one next to it, my dad actually worked for the Orioles for 45 years in the front office and is in the Orioles Hall of Fame. But when Cal Ripken retired, Cal Ripken's dad and my dad were best friends. And that's a jersey from Cal to my dad when Cal retired.
Oh, that's so cool.
Brandon, do we have like a name dropping graphic? Something we can throw up?
Seriously, he's got so many.
Billy Senior.
You know who's written a couple of books? Cal Ripken has written a couple of books.
Cal has? I think I've
probably ghostwritten. I'm not sure he wrote them, but you know.
Isn't that the way you did yours too?
Perhaps.
Here we go.
Damn,
wow.
Brandon's been working.
I gotta say, the branding you guys do is solid.
All right, be quiet, Josh. It's not your time to talk right now. Welcome, everybody. Let me ask you out there,
All right, Timberlake.
Retireholic land, are you a fiduciary? Do you know someone else that's a fiduciary? Does being a fiduciary keep you up at night? Are you stressed out with the responsibilities that a fiduciary might have? Well, guess what? We've got the answer for you today, because today's episode has been brought to you by a new sponsor. It's Josh Itzo's books. He's got two of them. The first, the book that came out in 2020, The Fiduciary Formula, 6 essential elements to create the perfect corporate retirement plan, can be available to you. Simply call 1-800-ROBE-GUY, and we're selling it at a discounted rate of $2.99. But wait, there's more. Because you can get a second book. That's right. This motherfucker's written 2 books. The second one's called Fixing the 401k. And I won't go into the little subtitle thing because I can't read it. It's too blurry. But it's got a wrench on it. And what's that other tool called?
I'm surprised you knew one was a wrench.
JD is a tool. I'm not surprised. He is a tool. So I'm not surprised that he knows what those 2 things are.
If you act now, you can get the second book free. Simply call into 1-800-ROBE-GUY while supplies last. And the second book is free. So
Shipping
yes.
and handling is
Books.
just $139.
Oh, Girl Scouts
Yeah,
must be
nice.
sponsoring that, huh?
Very nice.
No,
All right.
That's just my cut. That's all.
Okay.
Yes, he is the author of books, and that's really fancy. We got to ask him if he actually wrote these things himself or just hired someone. Justin,
No, I can't follow that up, dude. Just keep going. You're
introduce
doing
our
great.
guest. No, introduce our
shit.
guest.
Did.
Well, you did, man. I was going
No,
to
I
talk
didn't.
about the best-selling. Okay, to extend out of that, I think we have our normal acrosyn. Is that what we call it? I think every time Josh drops a self promo, he's got to take a drink.
He's not going to do it.
Yeah,
He's
he's
already
not gonna do it.
prepared. He's
Don't
solid.
worry.
I think
Don't
we can
worry.
get him.
I'm gonna.
What is the name of that
Training.
second?
I've been training Rocky IV style. I've been training.
What's the name of that second book though that JD didn't know? The subtitle. What was that?
It's. I'll tell you. It's what
Fucking
fiduciaries must know and do to help employees retire successfully. What have I done wrong?
I was trying to get him to say it.
Oh.
Jesus.
No, for him to get over I think 3.5 is the over under. He has to actually say like, in the book I wrote, we did this, or check out my books
And
at
you have to say it
Amazon.com.
like that too.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Sounds
bro,
good.
if you get a chance, and if you're out there listening, listen to, I think it's his most recent podcast, where I jumped on there with him and we had a great conversation, but
Yeah, it was good.
he must have repped his book like 4 or 5 times in that episode.
well,
It caught me
also-
off
Totally
guard.
have a complex now, by the way.
This is gonna be our
Totally
first
have a
guest that
complex.
goes off
I
the
got
show
people at
ever.
my firm that are like making fun of me about,
You also
Uh,
said that your
thanks.
book puts people to sleep, so that's why I bought it.
Josh, we've given other people.
if you have
a
insomnia, if you have insomnia,
guy.
that'll cure it.
Yes. Okay, Justin. I
Mr.
guess-
Sullivan, he walked away with a complex too.
He can no longer say fantastic.
If thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Make sure you are in gallery view. That's up in the top right. Yes, we're playing Acrosin. So Joshua, can I call you Joshua? If you use an acronym, I'll give an example, PEP, MEP, TPA, whatever, you must drink from your nasty drink. That's your more hard alcohol type. Hopefully you're sipping on something else that's a little less dangerous. We'll be playing Chat Bar Champion tonight. I usually get caught. I
Good-
say,
good
yeah.
chat.
Whew,
Mhm.
that's good.
Well done.
So Josh, pay attention to the chat bar, because you will have a vote to vote someone into the finals for our chat bar champion. And then you out there, the audience, you're going to pick the champion. You're going to vote for it in a poll. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to do that at the end of the show and see who wins all the cash and prizes. And hey, if you're tuning in and you want to ask some questions, make sure your video's ready. Make sure you got a great background so you can get a solid Webby room rating, and join us for the after show where things get real fun, and you can jump on with your video and ask a question. Before we get started, let me reference, try to set this thing up. the 401k Specialist Mag LinkedIn posts. And then I just want to thank people that helped out. So 401k Specialist Mag takes just a silly post I did earlier this week where I threw up a faux cover of us and tagged John Sullivan, the what's his title?
Editor-in-chief.
Editor-in-chief. And I said, hey man, we're never on the cover. I wrote some stupid little thing. Anyways, they took it and they reposted it and said to the world, like, hey, should these guys actually be on the cover? What's the deal? And then the thing is just blown up, right? With like freaking who knows how many comments. It's a lot. And so if you're out there, regardless of whether we get on that cover or not, like, and Justin, you asked that earlier, if that would really happen. I actually don't care at this point. My heart is so warmed. No. You know what matters more than the damn cover? All of the positive comments that people wrote. I mean, I'm not even joking now. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. People wrote some of the coolest shit about this silly beer drinking show that we've done. And I just can't thank you enough. So if you're one of those people that hopped on there and did that, thank you from me, Chad, Justin, Mark, and Brandon. And by the way, if we have a cover, I feel like Brandon should be on the damn cover too.
Yeah.
Anyways, I probably not communicating this properly, but it was just really fucking cool to see everyone give such positive feedback. So that's cool. And keep it up, man. Let's keep bothering John Sullivan and maybe we'll make it happen. Who knows?
Hacker, you extortioning son of a bee. We'll give it to you.
Yeah, but that's not make John Sullivan mad. I don't.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
scary.
we really
You think
don't,
women
dude.
Get mad.
He's got some words.
Is he on tonight? No. He shared some texts with me.
There's zero chance he's showing up to this today.
He shared some texts with me late night that I will not reveal. But yeah, he was aware and upset. He sent me some GIF.
Is that Kev?
That does count.
Is that acronym?
It is.
Yeah, Mark, hit him up.
I am.
It was of a bunch of people with pitchforks and stuff outside of his house, like chanting cover. So,
All right.
Let's dive right into
Anyways.
it. To start the show, for the very first question, I have a serious one. And I want an honest and transparent answer from you, Josh. Okay. There's no dodging this. The audience wants to know. Have you ever been inside super advisor Jania Stout's house?
Ooh.
What is that?
Technically no, because it wasn't her house at the time.
Okay.
It wasn't her house at the time.
Did you
I
sell
might have
her?
thrown up in the
So you-
bushes. I might have thrown up in the bushes when I was like 16 or 17 outside her future house, but she didn't own it at the time.
Jania Stout texted me when she heard he was going to be on the show. She said wonderful things about you, by the way. And then said, by the way, ask him, he's been in my house, but the answer is not what you'd expect. And I was like, okay. So anyways,
She lives
we
about
know.
3 miles. She lives about 3 miles away from me now. And we were talking a long time ago, and she was mentioning where she lived. And like, I was like, well, what does the house look like? And she told me, and I was like, I've been in your house and I've thrown up outside your house.
That's a pretty regular occurrence for Justin. So he could say that to a lot of folks too.
There you go.
well, unlike, wasn't it Jania who, when she had the penalty, when she said the penalty word, she took an entire shot of hard alcohol. And I want to remind Josh that you just have to take a sippy sip from your bad drink, not an entire shot. Let's go for topic number one. I'm going to throw at you guys some headlines and maybe we can get a conversation started around these. So little update for everyone out there tuning in on kind of what's going on in the industry, things I think you should pay attention to, maybe check out. So Fred Reish, the Reishinator, the Reish that'll eat your quiche, is on John Sullivan's 401k podcast. And he was awesome, as he always is. He talked ESG rules, trends, Reg BI, and so I definitely.
There you go. You know who's else podcast he was on?
Who?
That guy.
Oh yeah, but that was a while ago. Yeah.
I got to say, I talked to Mark about this earlier. I really think he's a strong contender of who's between the three of you, Fred's BFF.
We all know
Really?
True BFF. Yeah. I was impressed.
That's two.
Shit.
I don't
Anyways,
think
continue.
I don't think anyone.
I don't think it's much of a competition.
Oh, then be fighting words.
Granted, the rates that I have to pay him, I better be his BFF.
That's a
It ain't-
drink
it
for
ain't
Josh.
cheap.
Josh, you need a
Oh.
drink from your penalty drink for the best friends forever comment. And I say Fred
My
and
bad.
Mark will be best friends forever. No one could take that role.
Nobody has a tattoo of Fred on their arm like I do.
So I definitely think
That's
you
just
should.
weird.
I
That's just
definitely
weird.
think you should tune into that one. Fred gives some good insights, and it's kind of interesting too because Fred shows me his hand. He's a little anti-Zoom. Sounds like he really wants to get back to the regular world. But tune into that. 4K Fridays with our boy Rick Unser. He's got a doctor, David Kelly, dude from Ireland, and who is the chief global strategist for JP Morgan. And they talk about interest rates and a potential bubble and the economy and the bull run of the stock market and all kinds of cool investment things. So tune into that. When they get to the end or halfway through, Rick asks this global strategist for JP Morgan, what 4K per
Do those two count?
I think so.
That's two more for you, JD.
are we talking about the initials before Morgan?
Yeah.
But yet you can say my name, but we can't. say
We
that.
clarified your name is safe game.
Back to my point. Rick asked him about what should 401k participants do when it comes to investments. Like, what advice did he have for them? And he, within all his intelligence and with his doctorate, said that they should diversify their investments. So I thought that was pretty shocking.
What?
For that?
I've never heard that before.
Hold
Yeah, I
on.
know. I was on the edge of my seat, like, what's he gonna say? And he's like, diversify. So, anyways,
Yeah.
they did talk
That's something
about
that doesn't get talked about often enough, quite honestly, JD. I sit in so
diversification.
many point of sales every single year, education meetings every single year, and most of the time, I don't hear a thing about properly diversifying. I hear advisors talk about utilizing the target date funds or the risk management funds, risk tolerance funds. Very little diversification.
I would hope that's part of a enrollment education meeting. He did say that he was bullish on 2021 and the economy, and he felt like come the end of this year, like we're just going to see a booming economy market, with travel and hotels and restaurants. And he painted this image of us all just getting back to real life and it just funneling tons of cash everywhere. There's a little child with a weird hat in black and white. I don't get that image.
Can I just say that macroeconomics is just voodoo science?
If I knew what macroeconomics,
I was going to say expand.
Comment on that.
Josh.
I just, I and everybody's got to have a job, but if 2020 shows anything to any of us, it's that nobody knows what the heck's going to happen in the future. It's all, you get really smart people on one side making compelling arguments. You get really smart people on another side making compelling arguments. But, I kind of chuckle when I hear people who are so confident about the future and what's going to happen. It's just, it makes for good commentary, but the utility of it is totally useless in my opinion.
I love that insight because it's like me sitting on the edge of my chair waiting for this doctor and global investment guru to give me something that I've never heard. And his honest answer is like, hey, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because he agrees with you, Josh. Like, no one knows what the hell's going to happen next. Chad, you had a thought?
What they say.
No, I was going to say something political and I decided to pull it back.
Great.
X-Wing.
Here's a fun update. If you're an advisor out there at TPA, check.
Dude, you're
Check
going to
out-
get hammered tonight, JD.
I'll owe that one. Hang on a second. Check out aspa.org.
Nope.
Oh, shit. Yeah, here we go.
You want to do an industry update for the first time ever, and it's going to be 22 minutes of you drinking.
And there is a special.
JD's going to do the rest of this episode from under his desk.
I'm not going to that one yet, but go ahead and leave it up because I want to talk about that one in a second. But I want to give this special alert that Kelsey Mayo, a past guest on this show, kind of threw out from that entity that I just talked about that Nevin Adams works at. And it's this. The IRS is getting some of their notices screwed up. They're sending out the Internal Revenue Service. Thanks, Greg, for policing that. The Internal Revenue Service. Hey, this is important. I want everyone to listen to this out there because you're probably going to get
people focus.
You're probably going to get you're probably going to get clients that are going to reach out to you because of this. And I think it's important for you to notice. The Internal Revenue Service is sending out notices to clients around the extension for the 5,500 that they did in 2000 for the 2019 plan year. And two things are happening there. They used to send the acceptance of that extension very early on, but now they're getting it in 2021 and clients are getting it. And then on the flip side, we have clients that have filed an extension for that year, but then went ahead and filed, and now they're getting a notice saying, no, we refuse your extension. You cannot, we're not accepting your extension. And I'm talking about 2019, right? So we've had clients call in, talk to the Internal Revenue Service, and they're like, oops, we're screwing up. And there's an article at that website that I mentioned earlier that you can read. But if you're an advisor or a third-party administrator, make sure you know that oopsie, IRS is screwing up and sending
and calling that group is not fun. I dealt with 3 clients this week.
What group would that be?
That exact issue. The Internal Revenue Service.
Okay, just to make sure.
There's a lot, and the
Good
on hold music is not great. There's another one at that same website, and it's on multiple employer plan lawsuits. It is titled "Another Multiple Employer Plan Targeted in Excessive Fee Suit," and I want to kind of dig deep into this one, so much so that I'm going to pull up the article and walk you guys through it a little bit, because I really want to dive into some conversation. So let's slow down and talk about this one and get your thoughts.
It took 18 minutes to get there. This
Yeah,
time.
well, you know what they say.
It's like our sales calls on Monday. It takes 30 minutes of banter before we actually get there.
There's this excessive fee allegations toward this multiple employer plan. It's against Heartland Coca-Cola Bottling Company. And the employer participates in the Coca-Cola Bottlers Association, blah, 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 multiple employer plan. Okay. And you're talking about 19,000 participants. You're talking about $800 million in assets. And Nevin Adams does a phenomenal job summarizing all this. So go and check it out. The suit was filed on February 1st. And it really is centered around, like a lot of these suits, investments. And there's a couple specific areas that I want to get your guys' opinion on. But let me read through Nevin's kind of 5 bullet points on why this plan is getting sued. Okay. Served up target date funds that for at least part of the class period, which I think class period is a fancy attorney term for like the period of this lawsuit, directed a substantial portion of their assets to an S&P 500 fund that charged more than 7 times the market rate. So, Standard & Poor's. Okay, fair enough. What do you think a typical Standard & Poor's 500 index fund is? 5 bips, 10 bips? So something like that. So
those count.
Oh, what did I say?
That's
whoa.
No,
Basis
that's
points.
one.
Basis points.
Yeah.
Wait. I'm calling on can I say the abbreviation I said for basis points is a violation?
Yeah, because it's the 3 letters that we use as short.
Okay. All right. So there's that.
Technically, I don't think it's. I mean, is it 3 letter?
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't know. We could go on for days. Let's
There's
ask
an S
Greg.
at the end.
Ask
Josh,
Greg Greenfield.
don't
He would
defend
know. He would know. So that's kind of a share class thing, which is pretty typical, right? We see that in a lot of these lawsuits. It's a share class thing. And let me get your guys' vibe on that. There are still plans out there that at least this is what's being offered up here, is there a lower share class available of that fund? And I'm so scared of acronyms right now. You should always be, you have to take advantage of that, right? And does that matter whether you're an $8 million plan or an $800 million plan? Josh is our guest. The share class thing keeps coming up over and over again, these lawsuits. Is it true? Are there plan sponsors out there that are, and their advisors that are guiding them or not getting them into the best share class that they could be in?
I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, obviously up market, I would say, the obviously specialists, it's a lot harder to compete up market because everybody's good, right? It's like if you're playing in the major leagues, Chad, that's,
I like the reference,
right? If you're playing in the major leagues, everybody's a stud, but if you have a major leaguer that goes and plays on like the JV team at his old high school, he's going to crush everybody. Right. And so up market, everybody, what did I do?
Varsity.
My name's legit. You can say my name.
He said,
yeah, but he said junior varsity.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, I think the share class issue is probably much more down market, but it's good results, are the flower of a well-tended garden. And I think what happens a lot of times is you get even, consultants, or you get advisors, you get plan sponsors. I don't think you can put it on plan sponsors because at the end of the day, they're running businesses. They're relying on folks like us to be able to give them good guidance. And, I do think if you're paying 25 or 30 bips.
Yeah. I don't agree with it, but yeah.
If you're paying 25 or 30 bips for an S&P fund, when you can get that.
Yeah, that's another one.
Save them up. Keep going.
There's no reason to be paying 7 times the market. Now, 7 times, right? If it's 20 basis points and you're paying 140, right? Seven times is more of shock value. But still, if you think about 20 basis points or so on 800 or whatever, it's not obviously 800 million, but you're talking real money. And I think part of the challenge, I think disclosing and talking about basis points it's kind of quasi disclosure. If I said to you, 50 basis points or $50,000, which one would cause you to viscerally pick your head up?
It's a really good point.
What would you say out of those two?
I would say it's likely
the
to
cash,
$50,000.
Yeah,
the conversation we have on startups all the time.
That exactly. And so, 50 basis points is $50,000 on a $10 million plan, right? And so, I think it's really, really important to talk about dollars and not talk about basis points. We like to disclose in basis points because it takes us away from having to have harder conversations.
Well, it takes away from the shock value because most people can't digest that, Josh. They look, if you're talking to a $30 million plan and you're telling them they're paying, I don't know, $75,000 a year in costs for plan operations, they balk at that. You tell them they're paying 10 basis points and they don't. But I'll argue a little bit back. I think the lawsuits in the share class game is happening in the larger market because the lawsuits, these settlements aren't happening on a $20 million plan.
Because you can't make attorney can't make any money on it. If you're talking about a 5 or 10 year, they're not making. Since there's no punitive damages, you're right. It's up market, but
JD, you remember when Hancock came out with their lowest cost share class in their program, where they said, "Hey, it might be an A share, it might be a C share, it might be an R6, whatever it might be. We're going to always have the lowest net share class, and we're going to cycle those quarterly based upon the revenue share that we're getting back or the kickbacks from the providers." Essentially, what Empower is doing with Select now is almost the exact same thing. They're getting the kickbacks to lower overall plan pricing. But imagine the liability. Nobody ever talked about that, but I feel like Hancock carries extra liability by making that statement, because that's a lot of behind the scenes work to try to figure out what is the lowest possible share class cost, net share class cost.
Well, let's be clear about something though first, because Hancock plays a lot of times in this micro market. It's okay to have a 70 basis point Standard & Poor's 500 index fund if you're a $300,000 plan, right? Like that's a natural for those types of products. This is an $800 million plan. Why? Because people have to get paid. So let me give my second point, Josh. There's no difference between offering a 10 basis point index fund and then having a 60 basis point wrap on top of it. I'm okay so far.
You said Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm used to it by now. I'm sorry.
It's okay to have 60 basis points built in for compensation for whatever it is, record keeping, advisory services, what have you. So there's really no difference between a 70 basis points S&P index fund and a 10 basis point one with a 60 basis point wrap. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but so
Well,
here's
it's
the problem.
facts, so don't argue with it.
Facts are in the eye of the beholder. Here's the problem. Here's the problem is, and I think it was Joe Duran I once heard said this, who was the CEO of United Capital before they sold to.
Chief Executive Officer, I think is what you meant to say.
That is. He said that basis points are like the poker chips of our industry, and I thought that was actually a really good, a really good comment. You get a $10 or $20 marker. It doesn't feel like a $10 or $20 bill.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's actually, I would argue that the problem, especially in small plans, is when they wrap everything in basis points.
Different argument. Yeah. Different argument.
Well, but what happens is maybe that makes sense when you have $300,000, but then the plan grows to 3 million or 5 million or 10 million, and nobody's been kind of, keeping their hand on the plow. And then you get fees that are out of control. I mean, I really do think that this is not going to be popular, but I just don't know why I don't think advisors, and quite frankly, I think record keepers, I think we need to go to fixed fees. Fixed fees are how you control costs over time. And it's our job to have more of a conversation with plan sponsors around the cost of professional services, like what it costs to have a plan. And if they want to go to somebody who's gonna, make it cheap for them early on, that's gonna, that they wouldn't be a good long-term client anyways. So, I'm a big believer in fixed fees. I just think it's the right way to go. And I think you can have a much better conversation intuitively with plan sponsors when you talk in dollars and when you show them. We do a lot of times fee projections over time. And we do like a 5-year.
Wait, and can I clarify, Josh?
Wu-Tang Financial.
Can I clarify, Josh, for the audience? And then Chad, I think you've got a thought here. And when you say fixed fees, what you mean is invoicing the client, having the client pay as a business expense.
No.
Oh, well, then I'm going to take major beef with you.
I'm saying fixed fees. My preference, and JD, you and I talked about this on the podcast.
$2,000 out of the assets as opposed to 20 basis points is what you're saying.
Right.
That's exactly
whatever.
That's exactly right.
You cannot argue with your points. Obviously, you want to monitor that stuff ongoing. And I totally agree with you. I think that would be a better world. That would be a 401k utopia if everything was a flat, fixed dollar amount. But Josh, I hate to break this to you. In the micro mid market, I don't see that happening, and I don't see it happening anytime soon. So what we instead need to depend on is reality. And in reality, what we need to do is teach people to monitor it, have these fiduciary review meetings, and dial back costs as a plan grows. And by the way,
use freaking tech.
I believe that happens for the most part. Go ahead, John.
I would say in terms of bringing plan costs down as they grow, use tech. It's very, very simple to set up a blended asset charge that goes down as the plan assets grow. Not the point I was going to make. The 3 points I wrote down so I didn't forget is, Josh, you mentioned in the micro market, and this is JD's comment. If we were charging fixed flat fees as an industry in the micro market, you're telling a startup with 5 people that needs an advisor that's going to help them. They need to pay $6,000 to get a good advisor to step in there. No,
they wouldn't set up the plan.
And advisors are going to go in there and service that micro market plan with very little to no comp in hopes of getting the private wealth business, in hopes that the plan grows and they can still be charging, 50 basis points or 75 basis points when it's $1 million or 2 or 3 or 5. So I think it's a good thing that in the small market, people are willing to go percentage. I'll also say in the small market, we talk a lot about incubator programs. A provider that wants to charge asset base only, if they do a good job and retain that client till it's 2 million, I hope they catch up. But they're charging asset based charges on $0 when we start this plan. They're working for nothing for the first 4 years. And so I, at times, will tell an advisor, Hey, use that asset base only charge and then flip it to another product in 3 or 4 years. That's what's in the best interest of your client.
Ouch. Wow, Chad. That's a
Hey,
dirty
it's
little
what's in the
move.
best interest of the client. Sometimes you have to do that.
It's not like they're making nothing. They're shoving their funds into that lineup too. Don't
Always.
That's
So that was
another
my
discussion.
third point, Mark. You're so smart.
I
My
want to
third
back
point
up
was-
Josh.
So part of the problem here, and again, JD, you and I chatted about this, is if I could, there's a number of things I would do if I had a magic wand and could kind of redo the 401k.
Whoa, this is a family show, dude.
My bad. But what I would say is that plan sponsors, it's kind of like Congress, right? When Congress needs to raise some revenue, what do they want to do? They want to go kind of raid retirement plans, right? And they want to, rob the piggy bank there to get,
Sure.
right, tax revenue now and kind of kick the can down the road. I would say that most plan sponsors, and this is why they're not vigilant about fees over time, is that the vast majority of fees for the plan are coming out of the trust. They're coming out of the plan. And so it's not hitting their P&L. If it was like health insurance where they had to, stroke a check every year, they would be much more vigilant and dialed in, I think, to the fee discussion. And so, I do think we've had a lot of success. I mean, I would say, and again, it is larger market, but I think a way with a lot of these plans, quite frankly, the way you could make the argument that, hey, this is why you want to pay fees outside the plan is, especially in smaller plans, it's usually the execs and the owners who have most of the assets.
True.
And so if you're paying asset-based fees and have a lion's share of the assets, you should pay that outside the plan. Take the deduction, right? And not rob compound growth from it's just foolish to do it yourself.
Every one of our combos has that.
This is such a tough discussion argument though, because Chad's point earlier was, Chad's point earlier that was like, hey, if a record keeper is going to charge 60 basis points to do record keeping and the plan is, $100,000, they're making $60 or something, right? And so, or is it 600? Sorry, I should check my math. Someone out there, but regardless. And then that's not the point that Josh is trying to make. Josh is trying to say like, look, let's just convert it from basis points to a flat fee. So if you're only going to make $600, then fine. Then the fee $600. He wasn't talking about what's profitable, what's not profitable. What do you make in year 2 or year 3 or year 4? I mean, that's just an inherent problem of the industry. So Chad, to your point and to argue your point, it could still be a flat fee. It doesn't have to be basis points. But the point you're making is in the real world, that 60 basis points will help them out when it gets to 500,000 and when it gets to 750, when it gets to $1 million. And it's just a cloudy, messed up little world we live in. But
the micro market's a really, that is a really hard market. I mean, I will tell you from a business standpoint, I'm in business to
write books,
to do well and to do good. Right. But 85% of our fees are fixed fees, but we have anywhere usually from a 3 to 4% annual increase built into the contract, right? So we charge a fixed fee. It's like an inflation adjusted bond, right? We charge a fixed fee, but every year that's getting escalated usually by, 3 or 4%, which is pretty reasonable. I mean, our rent alone goes up 3% every year, right? Our overhead. And so that's a way that we can build in, you control out of, what I would call revenue growth, uncontrolled revenue growth, but you also build in the ability to maintain your margins over time, right?
I've said this a million times.
There's ways that you can solve this issue around running a good business. I would argue, like if you're an advisor working for $600 a year, then you're not running a very good business.
Yeah. Well, and
you're not running a very good business.
They are, Josh. They're out there doing that. And Chad talked about some of the reasons why, but also if you put yourself in Josh's shoes and Chad, you look at our clients, when we have $50 million, $75 million clients, they have fixed flat fees.
Yeah.
Like that's just the world that lives in. Yeah. So it's really different in the large, because you can't have something like that on a $100 million plan. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I want to shift into maybe drinking some Smirnoff Ice, but in this lawsuit, to wrap up the lawsuit, hang on, Justin, I never got to this point. It was like my major point I wanted to do. the lawsuit is centering also around the client not using CITs. So, shit.
That's what you get. I could have stopped doing that.
They moved from T. Rowe Price target date funds to T. Rowe Price collective investment trusts several years ago. But apparently, according to this lawsuit, they didn't do it soon enough. Collective investment trusts, God, this game sucks, are becoming more and more common, even in our market, in this smaller market. I know it's big time in Josh's market, that bigger market. Is this a thing now? I thought it was just kind of a cool option now to have a collective investment trust, but now I'm going to get sued if I'm not finding that I have these available for my plan. Are you guys even hearing about this, Chad, Mark? Because they're available.
Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, I had a conversation today with Voya Menu 2 having CITs, dang it, on the backside, but not in the stated to ask for them on Menu 2. But yeah, it is absolutely part, even in the micro market, it's part of the conversation right now.
Greg Greenfield says,
I think
collective
CITs
investment
are
trusts
over.
are sexy. I want to hear your opinion, Joshua. Give it to us.
I mean, I'm not it's interesting the comment you made about, you're getting sued. Like getting sued and losing in litigation or settling are two different things, right? And everybody, you hear a lot of times people talk about, I think there's a lot of fiduciary fear mongering, not from the people who listen to this show and watch this show, right? A lot of times I think we can be in kind of the echo chamber. Folks like us do it right? We know these issues, we do it right. The reality is lots of plans are serviced by chumps in the industry. Not the people who listen to this show, but there's a lot of
language is offensive.
There's a lot of I think every plan in the country should be with a specialist, and there's a small number of folks like us that are out there. There's so much business that's out there for all of us.
Well, Josh, we've got a ton of these $600 a year plans we can send your way if you're down.
No, I'm not down. That's why but I do think, CITs personally, we've been very passive since we started the firm in 2004.
That's two.
Collective investment trusts. Give them some respect.
So we've been very much since we started the firm. We've just bought into low cost passive index investing, even when it wasn't sexy. And so I would argue that, from an investment perspective, and I think I saw a really good quote here on the chat around, a basis point here or a basis point there. I think the trade-offs with CITs, there's not a ton of transparency reporting wise.
It's hard.
I personally don't like CITs. This is terrible.
Isn't that kind of the whole point of collective investment trusts? Is there's less regs, less oversight, less shit going on, so they're cheaper.
They're cheaper, but they're hard to report on from a due diligence perspective.
Hard to track.
And I do think there's something around participants being able to hop on Morningstar and put in a ticker and see the information, as opposed to trying to find something.
That'll change. From
a collective perspective. Maybe it will, but it hasn't. It hasn't yet.
No, it has. It just hasn't changed in mass. But that is available. Like you can get that type of stuff for the collective investment trust. But I hear you. But it'll change. That's just a tech thing. That's minor. But that's my question.
MVPs. Let me ask you this.
Drink. And if you say pooled employer plans, you're off the show.
If anybody, I gotta fill up. The collectives segment crushed me.
Before we get to multiple employer plans, can we? I don't want to. I can get soapboxy here. We're getting very close to pooled employer plans. Yeah, let's do what Chad wants to do. Brandon, let's spin the wheel of ice and see who gets 220 glorious calories. Unless you got a 0. Do you have a 0? Who's got a 0?
I got a 0, baby. My last one, though. I've had 5 of these already.
They don't ship zeros to San Diego. Apparently, I can't find them.
By the way, there's some.
Apparently, this was
really
not
good
show notes, by the way. So.
Oh, don't worry. We don't make the guess.
Shannon and Amanda are texting me again in the middle of the show.
What am I doing? Jesus.
Spin the wheel of ice.
The wheel of ice. The wheel of ice.
Oh, sport.
Here we go.
I was gonna say it can't be me again.
I feel like that's rigged. Don't you feel like that's rigged?
Cheers, boys.
Hang on.
Everyone
Okay. This is going to take me a little while. So go ahead and when I'm done here, or you know what, Josh, just talk to the audience about multiple employer plans. Go ahead. Kick us off.
I'm not an expert in multiple employer plans, but I think a lot of times the argument around it absolutely is going to be lower cost. I'm not sure I totally buy that. I'm not sure that I've seen. So back in the day, the AC, other people may have seen it, like the ACEC trust, like the engineering. It was like the engineering multiple employer plan. And
I heard letters.
Funny.
So I hit the button.
Let him go.
Some with an A and a whatever and a whatever.
Whatever it was for engineering firms, and we have a niche in engineering firms. And it was funny. They came in and they were hammering on our client, and the client, I wasn't a huge client. I mean, maybe a $20 million plan around how, they can lower the fees. Well, that plan that we had, because we used a super passive lineup and we had negotiated the record keeping fees in a really competitive way. And, our fee was competitive as well. That plan was like 27 basis points all in. And it was funny that the fiduciaries, and I'm big on fees. I'd hammered that home to them, and they actually showed the salesperson from this MEP what the fees were, and they didn't believe it. They said, there's no way the fees can be that low. So I'm just not sure I agree that multiple employer plans, I hear a lot around the cost savings. I'm not sure that is
Now I know why
going to be a
you
reality.
love each other.
I'm not sure that's
Same
going to be
language.
I
a
love
reality.
You, man. I love
So-
you. I love you, Josh. Go to, can I say the URL?
We'll give you a pass.
Go to pepsuck.org and check it out. Become a member, join. And so, yeah, no. I've got the protective hat on right now. And I want to let you know that this whole pooled employer plan is a bunch of bullshit. Nevin Adams came out in the association that he works for, came out with a multiple employer plan, pooled plan provider resources website. And you can go there and there's lots of links and they'll take you to white papers and certain like websites and things. And my website isn't even on there. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how come I worked hard on that shit? So apparently they're trying to shield you from the truth. They're trying to shield you from the fact that PEPs are run by, I'll drink for that, are run by aliens.
How many $20
Oh, your
donations have
millions
you
of
gotten
dollars.
so far?
They want your millions of dollars.
How many cases of Smirnoff have you been able to buy through donations via pepsuck.org?
Only our CPA knows that, Josh. Yeah, that was one for Josh right there. He said,
Not really, but
Oh, wait, that's
honestly,
okay.
I'm not huge on the multiple employer plans.
I said that's one for Josh. He said pooled employer plan.
You said certified public accountant.
All right,
Oh.
we've lost 4 attendees
Right.
in the last 3 minutes. So let's go to. I want to talk about your podcast, Josh, a little bit, and I mean this when I say this. I tuned in, and I was really impressed with, and I think some of the audience has seen that today, with your ability to communicate your ideas around 401k, around retirement plans. You've had phenomenal guests, by the way. We've got to ask you that. Like, how do you come out of the gates and just rock people like Kitsis and Reish and frickin' Aaron Schum and there's bigger people
JD
out there,
Carp.
like you're crushing it. What I'd like, and so you do a great job.
We've
And
had those people too. Just
Real quick, have we even mentioned what the name of this podcast is?
Nope.
Fiduciary. Thank you, Justin. What is it?
You're welcome. It's the Fiduciary University. Nice try.
Technically, it's the fiduciary you, but close enough.
Yes.
Hey, does that count or not?
No, I don't think that counts. That's not an acronym.
Then why'd I have to not say it?
And you, what I like about it, and I would encourage anyone out there to tune in. I think you've probably got like 11 or 12 episodes out there, again, with phenomenal guests, is that you have a real knack for being a host. And I mean that. And when I listened to it as someone who hosts this show, I was actually really envious of your skill set. And I was like, I could learn from you. Like you have an ability to ask tough questions. You share your opinion on the matter. Anyone that's into this stuff, and I know if you're tuned into this, you are, go check it out. let's talk about some of your past guests and the conversations that you had with them. We got a little bit of time. Fielding Miller, the dude behind Cap Trust, who is someone that we've never had on this show, and we should. For you guys, you can kind of put him in the Vince Morris, Chetney kind of category. What a stud, huh? What Cap Trust is a massive company, and this dude built it from the ground up. Tell me about your opinion of and your experience with Fielding.
So Fielding is a rock star. He is a super genuine, really good, just incredibly charismatic guy that Cap Trust actually had. So we started our firm late 2004, and in 2011 or 12, he actually flew up to Baltimore. I went out to lunch with him, and he invited us down. He and Rick Shaw, if you guys know Rick Shaw from Cap Trust, they have incredible talent, but they brought us down for a couple of days to do the dog and pony, and we were a pretty small shop at the time.
Meaning what they wanted to buy you guys.
Yeah, exactly. But they have an incredible culture. I mean, I know a lot of people hate on probably the big guys, but I will tell you, out of all the firms, when you look at all the aggregators, I think Cap Trust has done it the best. I mean, they have a really impressive culture. He's a very visionary, charismatic leader. And I would tell you, scaling to, whatever they are, $450, $500 billion. I mean, it's insane. And it's kind of like you remember like in the 80s, there was that show, like the Stepford Family, right? Where all the family members they were like robots, I will say. And this is a good way. Building a firm, we started with 2 of us. We're 25 people now. Like, I know the challenges of building a good culture. They've been able to build an incredible culture. And I don't know, they have probably 1,000 people now along those lines. So, they do. I'm obviously partial to independent, shops like us, but I think they do a really good job. And he had some, I think, really good insights in terms of, how you scale and how you grow a firm. I think some of the other good podcasts, Michael Kitces, I would tell you guys, Michael is much more well-known in the private client world.
Yeah, he doesn't know shit about 401k.
He doesn't, but he doesn't. However, his idea of, he thinks that bringing planning, and I agree with this, I think one of the failures of our industry, and this is why I got into 401k in the first place, we all chase rich people around in the wealth management side of the world, right? And there's only a finite number of kind of rich people who can kind of pay our fees. And I felt like getting into 401k that I could have a much greater impact, that, if I influenced a committee of 3 or 5 people that made decisions for 100 or 500 or 1,000 people, that I could make a much broader impact. And that's personally what motivates me, and why I became an advisor on the retirement side. Was I got tired of chasing rich people around on the private client side, and I wanted to magnify my impact. But I do think Michael had some really interesting perspectives, and I think we've kind of failed as an industry. And I know wellness, and I have my own perspectives on wellness and what that means. But he thinks that really retirement advisors are the tip of the spear in terms of bringing planning to the masses and to the mid-market. And he XY Planning Network is one of the things that he started, and they're really focused on kind of that more smaller to mid-market financial planning. It's a cool episode. I'd listen. I tell you what, it's probably somebody you haven't heard a lot.
When I say,
listen to it.
When I say that Kitces doesn't know shit about 401k, I want to be clear. I chased him down at a conference that we were presenting at, guys, if you remember, to get his autograph. So that blue shirt dude, I'm a massive fan of him, and I listened to a lot of his stuff. And of course, it's always financial planning based and kind of wealth management based. But these days, those things are converging quite a bit. And I've said this ad nauseum on this show, but a lot of advisors are going to have to play in both worlds. And so if you don't know who Kitces is, you should start paying attention to him, because he's pretty much the leader in terms of advisor education on the planning side. But yeah, he needs to learn some shit about a 401k. Can you help us get Kitces on? And could you help us get the Cap Trust dude on here?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
we'd appreciate
I certainly, I'll reach out to, Michael and I have known each other for almost.
What are we going to talk to him about?
Hey, I know it might be weird, but he's such a big star. It'd be fun. Hey, maybe
he's wicked smart. He's a wicked smart student of the industry. He's as good as anybody in terms of, he's super technical, but being able to distill trends, he's really, really good. Really.
Tell me about your guest, Aaron Shum in Vestwell. Do you believe everything he's telling you?
So I love.
We've had him on.
and
We've had him on here. He's a
I
friend.
love the vision that they have around bringing tech and kind of the modern tech and whatnot. I don't know if I can probably. I'm going to say.
Hey, Josh
I mean,
is
I
on
think they're
here.
building-
Joshua's on here. Don't say anything terrible.
Dude, we love
kidding.
Wes
Go ahead, say
Vestwell.
it.
Webby, he wasn't.
No, I think Vestwell's great. My biggest concern with Vestwell is I think they're being built to sell at some point. I don't know how long Vestwell is going to be around because I think what they're building, and I think you saw it with robo advisors, right, on the wealth management side, is you had these tech startups, and then you have big firms who they have either a buy or a build option, and a lot of them, are going to buy a platform, and so, Vestwell, I could see that happening. I think that my concern with a lot of times with providers, right, and we're seeing it with consolidation, is it's a really scary issue facing the industry, quite frankly. And there's obviously moving a plan. Most providers do a pretty decent job, and a lot of them do the same exact things. And so, so much about getting a good provider relationship is getting a good day-to-day RM. And I just worry about, it's a pain in the ass to move a plan. We all know that.
Regional
Is
manager.
an acronym?
No, regional manager. Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, an
or-
RM.
I heard.
So.
No, there it is again.
In
I also am not smart enough around the tech, but it's when we were talking, and I tried to press him on this a little bit.
Yes, you did. Yes, you
his
did.
His neurons fire faster than mine do. But when I start thinking about the tech and the modern and the built from the ground up and all of that, I don't know. I just it's.
I got that vibe. I got that
I start
vibe.
to go. I wish I was smart enough to actually be able to ask the hard questions. I got a little bit out of my depth in terms of the technology issues.
Well put. Because Josh is on here in chat. I want you
It
to
sounds
know.
too good to be true. Sometimes it's too good to be true. And so I'm just,
Josh wants.
that's what I think.
Josh wants to hear the truth. He doesn't want us to bullshit about Vestwell. And
I was kidding, JD.
I think I honestly I'm with you, Josh, in that we were talking about the other Josh, but I'm with you, Josh, here on the show that sometimes I don't think I understand Aaron's vision for Vestwell. It's beyond me, and it's very different from what we're used to in the industry. So, anyways, I would not write them off.
He painted the picture very clear, JD. I felt like he did a really good job painting the picture on our show. The problem is I'm not sure, as Josh here is saying, that it is as reliable as he's painting it. I don't think the big dogs are going to lay down easily and allow this to happen without coming out with their own solutions of capturing the employee from every aspect of financial planning and wealth planning from A to Z. And I think that I saw today another startup, a smaller group, raised $310 million for their Schedule C funding. And I just don't see these small groups being able to really compete that well with these large organizations who will copy what they're doing and run it out there.
I think when you have all that private equity money, you have those investors, right? I mean, we know how the private equity world, you're not building, when you're taking that money, when you have to generate your own profits, that's like oxygen to your business, right? You're supplying your own oxygen. When you can do betterment. Look, it's a great way. Like when you get outside money, you're getting outside oxygen. And I'm not sure that Vestwell can be built with all that outside money to actually long-term be sustainable. That's my 2 cents. I will say this, and hopefully all the advisors agree that are on here, record keepers, this is shaping up. 15 years ago, they couldn't stand folks like us. And then they kind of got religion because more plan sponsors wanted independence and they hired specialists. And then they started to play nice in the sandbox. But the next battleground is wellness. You get an Empower that pays $1 billion for personal capital. We're going to wake up one day, and advisors need to be really careful because we're going to wake up one day, and there it is, the tinfoil hat. These providers, right? They're like frenemies right now. David Levine.
God, I love this guy. This guy. He's going down the path. We should say
no, but it's true. I'm telling you. I think that advisors are best suited to be the ones who deliver fiduciary advice to participants. But we're at a real disadvantage because these providers are throwing a ton of money. They're throwing a ton of tech. They have touch points and they want to win. Wellness is sexy and they want to win that arms race so that they can ingratiate themselves to providers or to plan sponsors. And advisors, like, it's our job to keep them in check, and I think help plan sponsors understand the trade-offs and the risks associated with record keepers trying to get in participants' pockets. My 2 cents.
Josh, I was drunk watching TV, and I saw Empower.
And it was a Wednesday.
Personal, probably, yeah. Who knows? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was a Personal Capital ad, and so I signed up. News alert. I signed up to like see what it's all about, right?
It's slick. I use it. It's
slick.
slick.
And so we'll save it for the after show. We'll talk a little bit about it because my experience out of the gates was a little weird, trying to pretend like I was a normal person going through the process. I've only got about 3 minutes to accomplish 2 things.
Have they called you real quick? Have they been hammering? So I get called 5 times a month by their like advisor sales team trying to set up a meeting with me because I downloaded because I could aggregate all my accounts.
Yeah.
Wait till you start getting hammered by their sales
team.
I've already
been on the calls with them, so that's what we'll talk about. I got a few minutes. We might run a little late here. I apologize, but then we'll hop in the after show. I've been doing this drunk history thing. This one's a quick one. He doesn't really talk about a whole lot except for himself. But it's one of my favorites because he coins a term that I've used for years. Brandon, can you pull up drunk Mark history from Retireholics, and then I'll close out the show after that.
Yeah, just start the show without your obvious star. That's perfectly fine. It's like it's just no respect. Like Rodney Dangerfield, just no respect. Where would they be without me? Look at Moneymaker right here. Retireholics, Markaholics. That's what it should be.
Yes, I love that one.
Much better one than last week.
Hey, it's tune in next week. I'm giving the boys here the Thursday off, but I say that kind of in jest because
time out.
Yep.
I have an announcement to make.
Yes.
I have a new rope sponsor, guys.
Let's check it.
Here we go.
Let's check it.
It's pinnacle.
I don't think he ever explained the robe to Josh. He did ask about it.
Hey,
Justin.
I feel like such a noob. My 6-year-old, he's watching YouTube videos, and so now he calls everybody a noob. Yeah, I feel like a noob that I didn't know that. My bad.
If I have to explain the robe at this point,
good.
All
Mark.
I'm gonna say is, if you don't know, now you know.
Mark, I just saw your Zoom name for the first time this entire show. Ask me about my book. Hey, tune in next week because I'm hoping you guys, Chad, Mark, Justin,
will be here.
We'll be in the chat bar. But
wait. We're not actually coming on the show.
Ever since he realized he's Justin Timberlake, we got pushed down.
Seriously, thanks,
Josh. We appreciate that.
Does anyone understand my name? JD, do you understand my name tonight?
I figured it out.
Joey?
Yeah.
Oh, you're Joey.
There you go.
Oh, nice. Yes, very much a Timberlake to the Backstreet, NSYNC reference there. But next week,
was this a weak show? Was this a weak show? Did we talk about anything good? Like
we're not done yet. We're not done yet, buddy.
Okay.
The best shit's in the after show. Okay. All right. Next week is important. I want to let everyone know that Women in Pension Network. Hope I got that right.
You got in because of your hair.
Is coming next week. I'm going to be sitting down with 3 women that are representing that association. And I'm actually pretty nervous because we're going to talk all things women in retirement, just, diversity, discrimination. And so I could step in it if I say some stupid shit. So I got to really.
Who are the guests?
Be careful. Well, don't put me on the spot to come up with names like that. Jesus, you asshole.
I typed that, Mark.
You don't get out of not being able
counts.
to type acronyms, bro.
So anyways, next week, I'm going to be hosting that. It's still going to be fun. We're still going to drink, but we're going to have some pretty serious conversations. And I'm I want Chad, Mark, and Justin to be in the chat bar. And yes, go ahead, Mark.
About the fact that this is just your
Ooh, I like Aaron's comment. You see that?
Twinkling in the, hey guys, just take the night off. Like Chad, Joey, myself, this is to us. JD's gonna get us bumped out of here by these.
This is my first step towards a solo album. Yeah, I'm going towards it. Okay,
you better do the filter.
That's a great transition because it's my turn this week to share a song to close us out. Mark had Shannon jump on. Shannon shared Pink. Justin shared some god awful country song with a guy on a boat.
It is country from here on out, JD. This is going to be
Chad
amazing.
shared a dad joke as a song.
It's closing time. Come on.
I had a moment where I thought, should I choose something that you all would like recognize, something cool from the 80s that would fire you up? And then I said, you know what? This is about like expanding your horizons. This is about bringing some new music to you that you haven't heard before. So do me a favor if you're out there.
1975.
We're going to flow our way to the after show, but I want you to kind of pay attention to this live performance, soak it in, have a little drink, and then afterwards we'll talk some more 401k like Josh said. Maybe we can actually start providing some value. But this is a band that I've seen. I'm wearing their shirt. Their name is Wolf Alice. The song is called You're a Germ. And I just try to, expand yourself. Pay attention to it. Soak it in. Accept it. It's music. Play it, Brandon. I'm running out of words.
Georgie rides a bike to pick her up from school. He likes it cause she's pure. She likes it cause she's heard he's cool. You're a germ. Twist my own sex. You're a germ.
Oh man, the ending's so good on that song, and you guys are all gonna miss it. Fuck. I know I forgot the CBC. Son of a bitch. Oh, that's two more. Okay, hang on. Where'd Chad go? I owe 2 drinks. Fair enough.
JD, I think the new rule for the songs that they need to be good.
By the way, don't give up on that band, Wolf Alice from the UK. They've got plenty of other songs that are very melodic and chill, and you could listen to them while knitting or whatever. So go check them out.
It was like a combination of like Nirvana and then but Nirvana when they were like 12 years old and sucked, like that was kind of what it was.
Oh, I don't want to get into an argument right now, Mark, but I have followed that band on their tour on the West Coast. I have sat front row while that lead singer, Ellie,
I'm sure it's not hard to
Going
get
off.
the front row when there's 12 people at a concert.
It was packed. Packed. They're huge.
VIP, JD. Oh, VIP is VIP. VIPs.
Nah, show's
It's
over.
after show. You're good now.
Yeah, you can
Holly.
say acronyms now. You're good. Just sip at your leisure. Did Ellie look directly into your eyes? No, but Tony, she had full armpit hair going on.
Ooh.
And I just thought it was
Must be
so
fresh.
punk rock, bro. I was fired. No, they're from the UK, but I was fired up. And Justin, yes, they are on the same record label as the 1975 Dirty Hit Records.
Makes sense.
So, anyways,
Did we vote for the chat bar yet?
no. So, Chat Bar Champion, are we gonna give it an after show try? Why in the hell not? Right? Like,
We still got a decent people.
Yeah, we got a ton of people.
attending, so
ton of people still here. So let's give it a shot. Josh, who is your favorite person in the chat bar? Who was witty, intelligent, consistent? You know,
There's some solid as I'm following this. There's some
Right?
solid
it's hard.
responses. It's hard.
and just remember, you're just giving them a vote into the finals. It's not as though you're picking winners
Mark,
and losers.
that was
here.
good.
I think I might go Will.
Hackler.
Oh,
Will,
God.
Will is always up there, man. Will
He's
always.
so like super, just in terms
It's like
of
watching
like
Brady
activity.
win the Super Bowl. You just want
Yeah.
to see something new.
I feel
Activity.
bad. I feel bad for Hackler and Greenfield because in my mind, like I'm not even gonna vote for them. They're too good.
They're too good.
They're
It
too
is
good.
like Brady winning the Super Bowl. You just don't want to see it anymore.
Love you, Hackler.
Justin, your vote for
I'm going Brett. All right, actually, you know what? Take it back. I'm
Nice.
going Mr. Jackson. I'm letting him
If you're nasty,
get back for his
He was
crap.
active
Yeah.
earlier, but then
He
got
has some
quiet.
He had a good one, and he needs to, redeem himself for that god awful prohibited word at the beginning of.
is that
whole thing.
Matt? Is that Matt Jackson?
Yes,
Are you talking
sir.
about? Okay.
hmm
Oh, Aaron Hall. I just saw your I should
Holly
check out
Sex
the
Sex
thing.
Sex.
I think Hall likes my music. She's into it. She's hip. She's younger than you guys. She gets it. Okay, Mark, your vote for Chat Bar
So-
Champion.
First, I started out with Holly because she said she was wearing her robe. But like I did this past week,
You're passing? No. Yeah.
Ooh, like
You homer, dude. People send you a patch and sponsor your robe, and you have to vote for them.
I
So,
don't have to.
so you're voting for Amanda.
Amanda gets my vote.
Ooh, paid him off.
I'm
All right.
Brett. I'm Brett all the way, JD. I already said it in the
Brett.
chat bar.
2 votes for Brett. 2 votes for Brett. All right. I like those. I'm scanning. So many. All right, let's stick with those, Brandon. That's it. Rock those.
Brandon get a vote?
I'm seeing
No.
the votes in the chat bar are all Brett. You just concede.
He was solid.
Everybody can
That was
concede.
good.
And I think I haven't
Okay,
seen him
Brandon.
on here before. So that
Here we
might have
go.
been his first night too.
All right, audience, you guys vote.
We're gonna vote.
We can vote. We can vote.
What? You guys can vote? I can't
I
vote.
love when Brandon lets us vote.
He didn't let me vote.
Hey Josh, to answer your
Man, I
show,
thought surveys were hard. on the fly.
whenever JD has a whole bunch of acrosins drinks, the show slows down and the value of the content is limited, but it's really fucking good. That was a fun show to answer
It
your
was.
question. That was a good,
No,
fun show.
I feel like I
We
might
had a
have
good time.
underperformed the
We
index.
covered
I think
stuff.
I might have underperformed the index tonight.
How was that
I might
how was that backhanded compliment from
Nah,
Chad?
everyone was.
But
He's like, oh, it's
Josh,
such a
everyone
fun,
loved you.
such a fun show. I mean, no one learned shit, and we didn't talk
No,
about
hey,
anything,
the
but-
spread we had on startups and costs and basis points versus billable, flat fee versus growing with asset, that was good stuff. That's the kind of thing I want to get into on the show more often. Personally, I think advisors take more from that than our conversations about acquisitions and consolidation.
Yeah, I know.
What's happening?
People get fired up. My only problem with that subject matter is it's so deep that it's kind of like politics and stuff. It's like, you can never like get to the core part of it all because there's so many variants to it. And it's like, okay, but in this situation, it's very different from this situation. And so it's a tough debate.
You know, I'll say, JD, I think that's a skill set of different people that do shows like this. Like Josh gets to his point quick. Sullivan, in those 12-minute shows he's doing, he does a damn good job getting to it quickly.
Fantastic.
I feel like fantastic. Good for you, Josh. We beat around it really well, but we cover a lot when we get on a point. And I like the way we do it. It's different.
I disagree with you in that. First of all, I think
Bring in the fire.
Josh does not get to the point. Josh is very much like me. He talks all over his fucking guests all day long. He's nonstop talking.
My show, dude. It's my show.
Secondly, John Sullivan, I think, writes down like 4 questions on a piece of paper.
Hey, JD,
he asks those questions.
There's no way that is the normal flow of Fred Reese speaking.
Bro.
That's sped up to 1.5 times.
You know what that is, Chad? That's editing.
Yeah.
And I write John Sullivan. I say, are you a journalist or are you not a journalist? Like, ask some fucking questions of your guests. Because it's always just the classic.
He's speaking to his audience.
So he is a John, and good dude. Like, he is a journalist. Like, I'm not a journalist. You're not a journalist, JD. Like, at the end of the day.
I'm a fucking journalist, bro. Don't you dare. Hey, did we mention that the CBC champ is Brett? Congratulations, Brett.
Well done, Brett.
I want you to know that Hero 7 is coming on the show sometime later in Q1. I can't come up with a date off my ass, but that'll be fun to talk. Chad keeps sending me direct messages in the chat. I don't know.
I didn't send you shit.
Stop doing that to me.
I didn't send you anything, JD. So somebody else sent you something.
Let's talk about another guest you had on, Josh. Eugenie. I love his accent. He sounds like a Russian dude who has like bodies buried in his backyard. He's a good friend of mine. I've actually had him. I've done an interview with him one-on-one. I am a massive fan of Evo Share. Let me ask you guys, and is the audience aware? Evo Share, getting cash back money on your purchases and putting it into your 401k and other things that we can talk about. Josh, what the fuck? How was your interview with him? And what do you think about that company?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it was funny. He ahead of time, he's like, I'm not sure about my accident. Your audience is going to be able to understand me. I'm like, dude, we'll be good. It's all good. But
you put subtitles on.
You got to pay attention. You definitely have to pay attention.
I think that one of my struggles is that you hear fintech all the time, right? A ton of money has flown into fintech, but it's all flowed into the wealth side. The ERISA side, there's very little fintech. Like the fintech we have, it's funny. I laugh like my partners and my teammates on the wealth side, they're like playing with the coolest toys. And I'm like trying to make like fire, like in my office. Like I feel like I'm living in a cave or something like that.
You're rubbing 2 sticks together.
Yeah, 100%. And so, I do think that's a real issue for our side of the business is that fintech is not, we just don't have great tools. The tools we're working with are pretty limited.
Why do you think that? Can I ask you why you think that is first? Because there's a ton of money in 401k. I mean, the large institutions love retirement plan assets. Why are we so behind the curve?
Well, that's a good question. I think one of the things is that if you look on the private client side, and we have we have like I think $1.2 billion or so in private client assets. So he does a lot
of humble brags and kind of
a little drop.
I dropped it. My point being, though, is that if you look at the private client side of the world, you look at who the big custodians are, you look at Fidelity, you look at Schwab, you look at TD before they turned into a cluster once they got acquired by Schwab. All of those custodians, even though they were frenemies, right? Because they have competitive to RIAs, but they're RIA custodians. And what they've done is they've opened up all their data to fintech providers. So you can get incredible tools on the private client side because the custodians have opened up the data and the pipes. I think that integration piece is why you've seen fintech on the private client work so well. You've got on the retirement side, every one of these vendors has tried to lock down data, right? And so they want to control it's interesting, Fidelity, right? On their custodian side, on the RIA side, They want to partner up. They want to help. But on the retirement side, they want to lock down their data. And, at the end of the day, I think a lot of the record keepers, years ago, they made huge, healthy margins, right? Because 401k plans were a great distribution model, especially if you were an asset manager, right? You had shoved your funds in there and you could give away the record keeping because you were making it up and then some on the asset management fees. Well, you've got the rise of passive. You've got the rise of folks like, the people who listen to this podcast, AdvisorWise, and watch this show, who are really beating vendors up. And you've seen their enterprise revenue go down big time, which is why you're seeing record keepers, their service sucks now because
we didn't talk
right.
About
they're
that.
not making the revenue. And so response times suck. Junior people are on accounts.
Can't retain
there's
folks.
a lot more self-service. I mean, we get into indirect fee compression because we spend a lot more time on operational calls, quite frankly, just like running shotgun and trying to hold vendors accountable because they won't do their job. And I think what's happening, and this is where wellness is coming in, all that enterprise revenue they lost from asset management fees, they're playing the long game to make it up on the wellness side. If we can keep assets on book,
really interesting point, dude.
that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. It's the long game, and they have the ability. I think they have the ability to do that, and part of that means they need to lock down the data. They don't want to give it up to advisors.
There's only so much loss leader you can run out there. I mean, you had a fishing term earlier. There's only so much you can run out there, and at some point 100%. You have to monetize. So that I thought about it that way. That's a really interesting.
That's what they're doing, and that's why they won't give up the data on the ERISA side. Is because they want to control that, because they want to control the participant experience. Because when those participants separate from service, they retire. They want to keep assets on book, and because they won't give up the data, you don't have fintech that's been able to do some cool stuff like on the private client side, where the custodians have opened up the pipes. That's my 2 cents.
That's great. That's better than 2 cents. Justin, I forgot that you were Joey. You were writing me. He was private messaging me saying, let's get the video chat people on. I'm like, who's this Joey guy? What does he want?
Remember, I did that before when Mark changed his name. I'm like, this fucker's got a lot of great points. And I wrote his name down. And then I went and searched him on LinkedIn one time. I'm like, this guy doesn't exist anywhere. And it was Mark.
Fucking Joey.
Hey, Carl.
To your point, though, I will say Evo Share, just for everybody, I think their stuff is super cool. I think concept,
absolutely.
I think the concept is a no-brainer. I don't know why any advisor would not bring that value add to plan sponsors and get the goodwill.
So cool. And what I didn't know until I listened to your podcast with him, and I've been pretty tight with those guys, is that emergency savings is something that they're targeting, which I'm like, whoa, that could be kind of neat. That could be fun.
What's behind that? So obviously my first thought is emergency savings, but if it's going in the 401k.
It's not. And so that's what was interesting. What he said is I asked him, I was like,
so they're doing something like Robin or.
Sorry, Josh. And Justin, sorry, Josh, hang on a second.
Jesus Christ,
Justin,
let Josh talk.
Work with Brandon and let's get our.
We're already there. Don't worry.
Okay. And Josh, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
No, I think it was funny. I asked him, I was like, Jenny, like, would you have started an ERISA on the ERISA side if you had to start again? He's like, no way. Like, it sucks. It's so highly regulated. Like, it's garbage. And so that's why, like, I think what they're doing, like the emergency savings, when you don't pull in, the ERISA regulation and that oversight,
totally.
There's a lot of velocity you can get. I think what they're doing is, we're looking actually at Greenspring, and I'm sure other firms are as well. But how do you bring affinity services? Like, we just partnered with a company called Trust and Will, which does really cool kind of low cost tech guided estate plans for like a few $100. And, I think we negotiated like a 10 or 15% discount that we're passing through to all the participants that we deliver as part of our wellness service. That is the key for advisors. How do you curate wellness services and get goodwill to deliver value to participants, Josh, even if that makes sense? I think that's how I see the world.
We're going to talk to Brad here and get his question, but I 1,000,000% agree with you. What we're looking at right now going forward is an arms race of advisors to align with the right tech that can build their solution to something that's really attractive to their current clients and their prospects. And there's so much to choose from. And I think EvoShare is a perfect example of that. And there's several others. So what arrows will you put in your quiver as an advisor to look more attractive to your prospects in the future? What a fun, exciting world we're kind of heading into.
That's a good combo for us to have at some point too. Like truly asking that question, JD. What are those arrows? Is EvoShare one of those arrows? I'd love to ask that question.
Yeah, put your tinfoil hat back on, JD, because here's the thing. You have all these vendors, all these record keepers. Look at Fidelity. Like they're not dummies. They're smart. What are they trying to do? They're trying to get as many services. They've got their 529 now, and
of course,
they've got like healthcare marketplace.
Monetize each client.
Well, and that's the thing, and not just monetize, but when I started my career at Morgan Stanley, and years ago, and it was funny as I was leaving, they were trying to pitch advisors on doing financial planning. This was circa 2003, and one of the things they said, and they were pushing hard, like lending and checking accounts and all of that garbage. But they were smart. They said, and they showed the research. They said, look, if you can get your clients using 2, 3, 4 services, they are so sticky. The switching costs, the inertia is just way too much. And I think personally, I like the idea, and obviously I have a bias here, right? Because I don't want my clients locked into a record keeper that we can't leave or that has control over us. But I think more of a best of breed, open architecture, bring together solutions. I think if you're an advisor and you have a client using multiple Fidelity services, now if it's what's best for them, that's a different story. But in many cases, everybody can be good at like a couple of things and pretty mediocre at everything else. And I think if you get a Fidelity or another record keeper that has a client using 3, 4, 5 services for participants, you're screwed. Like trying to get them away at some point if service drops, the inertia and the switching costs just going to be way too high.
It's sticky. Yeah.
It's sticky. That's they're not dummies. They're smart. Like they know what the deal is.
That was my point earlier about the big dogs.
Brad Bartels, I need to somehow tune into your LinkedIn more. I got to make sure you're flowing into my feed because people are blowing up about the stuff you're putting on LinkedIn.
I did one today.
Good shit. That's good.
All right. I'm going to pay closer attention to that or figure that out. Brad, how are you doing, dude?
Good. Thanks for
joining us. Sorry about Josh. He likes to talk even more than I do. Go ahead.
My bad. Sorry, Brad.
I just want to reassure you that this is not a sports question, so you're okay there.
Oh, see.
The team, go team, go sports.
Nice, Brandon.
And to everyone in the chat bar, I want to apologize. I did not have a chance to redecorate my office from last week, so
come on.
They're all the same. So
Webby rating 2.2. I
have not had a chance, So, Josh, thanks for being on the show. Hey, so I'm a CPA. I'm one of those pesky auditors of the large plans, and I got about 50 something plans that I look at. There's probably 5 of them where they actually have an assigned fiduciary, and those plans are in great shape. I probably got 10 or 15 where they're a wreck and they really could use somebody like you, but I can't convince them. Give me some advice. What can I tell these plan sponsors to get them to hire somebody like you to get their plans in shape and to protect themselves? I need some advice. Help me.
Wow, that's a good question. And if I can just be totally honest, like I am like the crappiest sales guy around. Like I'm not great. Like I'm a good ideas person and I'm good at like turning ideas into like tangible stuff. But in terms of like spinning the yarn to make a compelling argument, that's not usually my strong suit. One of the things though I have been trying to or been formulating, and I think is advisors, like we spend a lot of time talking about like the technical stuff, investments and fees. Like I think moving the conversation around really driving outcomes. And, one of the problems with plan sponsors, the reason they're not taking more of probably an interest is they don't see the value. Like they look at their benefit or their 401k plan as more of a nuisance and they don't fully embrace. I'm going to get on a tangent here, but I think if we could convince fiduciaries more around how important the responsibility is, not from a legal perspective, But the reality is that any company, the 3 or 5 or 7 people who sit on a committee, they make 99% of the decisions for the people who work for them, people that they care about, their colleagues, their employees, their families. And, I would compel, or I would I think trying to get people to understand that, look, your employees don't have, all they really decide is how much do I participate? How much do I contribute? And what do I invest in, basically, given this menu that's already been selected for me? So one of the things that we try to do in many cases is 2 things. One, we try to get committees and fiduciaries and decision makers to really viscerally start to understand that the decisions they make on behalf of their people actually have really far-reaching impact over time. You ever see the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe? And at the beginning of it, he, as he's compelling,
I can't trust you.
Say that? What?
If you haven't seen that movie, I can't trust you.
Okay. Well, at the beginning when they're getting ready to fire or fight like the Germanic tribes, and he basically says, what you're about to do is going to echo into eternity. And that sounds a little touchy-feely, but I really try to get, I think, educating decision makers around not just the legalities of being a fiduciary, but more the opportunity they have to shape and impact not just their people, but their people's family. It's generational over time. That's number one. The second thing I would just say is a really good advisor is actually going to free up a lot of time for plan sponsors, especially by being able to drive accountability, to be able to interface and liaison with, let's say, record keepers and resolve issues. And it actually can create lift for their business so they can kind of focus on, running their business and not all the headaches. Like we all know, everybody talks about in the industry, we try to scare people with fiduciary liability. I mean, if you just think about it intellectually, how few plans actually get sued? Is it possible you can get sued as a plan sponsor? Yes. Is it probable? And you're under $500 million or under $250 million? Yeah, it's not really likely. We talked about that earlier. I think the bigger issue actually is operational failures. You're an HR director and you have an issue because ADP, for whatever reason, didn't enroll one of the employees and there weren't deferrals and that took 5 years. And now you got to stroke $150,000 check. That's painful. You get fired as an HR director for that. So I would just say,
Josh, look at it from Brad's perspective. When he says, how can I get my clients to have better advisors? It's not about the lawsuits. You're right. I mean, the plans south of 100 million are not going to get sued, but Brad's a perfect example of someone who wants them to do better regardless. Yeah. Right. So he's seeing it and he's going, it doesn't matter that they're not going to get sued. I want them to run their plans in a better way because we all should be running our plans like we could get sued.
But what I heard, JD, from Josh that I felt like bled through the combo there was, if you want someone to be an extension of your team, you need to interview another advisor. Because everything you described was about being a person on that committee that was an advocate for the participants and an extension of that committee itself. Versus, Brad, I'm assuming when this situation pops up to you and it's an advisor that's relatively dormant, that's not servicing the client, that's not helping with education, that doesn't have the tech associated like we talked about in many shows. And so you're trying to say, look, what you have is not a best in class. It's not even mediocre in class. Mm-hmm. And so what can you say in 2 or 3 words is you need someone who's an advocate for you that is an extension of your team.
And you bring up a great...
What's up, Brad?
I'm just being selfish, and I just want to come into a plan that's not a mess and make my job easier. So that's my selfish reason for asking.
Brad, Josh, you said this earlier. It's my show. Brad, can I ask you as a CPA, do you feel uncomfortable ever? You have an advisor, you potentially have a TPA. I can use the acronyms now. Do you feel like you're overstepping your bounds by trying to recommend that they get someone else? And if you did do that, do you ever feel like an advisor would come in and be like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? This is my client. Why are you chirping in their ear about they should go somewhere else?
I don't feel I'm overstepping my bounds. I'm looking out for the best interests of them. And, I ask all kinds of questions about, are you happy with your payroll? Are you happy with your TPA? And if you're not, I've got a list of people that I can have you talk to. So I'm just looking out for their best interests. So no, and I know enough to be dangerous, but I know when I need to stop. And, but that's a question that I think I should ask.
So Brad, here's what I would say to you, which I think is great. I would say that you as a CPA, honestly, if I just look at our profession in general, part of the issue with the financial advisory industry is our compensation is all jacked up. And so I don't think as an industry we're viewed as a profession. We're viewed as like a sales profession. I would say in general, CPAs are probably on average the most trusted advisor to companies.
Agreed. Totally.
Agreed.
And, I think actually, if you here's what I would say if I were you. I would go to the client and say, look, love auditing your plan, but let me just tell you, when I look at my book of business, the plans that I audit, I think that your plan, in terms of like when I look at the highest performing plans, the ones that I see, I think that you guys are leaving some stuff on the table. And if I were you, I think what I would do is, I see the value of a specialist firm and what they've been able to accomplish with my other clients. And, I think it makes sense for you to reevaluate what you're doing because you have the ability to have a really kind of high performing plan, but I'm not sure you're there right now. And it's probably because you're not with the right advisor who's going to keep you ahead of the curve in terms of best practices. And I don't think I've referenced my book yet, so I'm going to reference my book right now.
Josh, here we go. God damn it.
Wonderful.
Josh, he just crushed it. Josh, you just crushed it right there. You said you weren't a salesperson, and you just did that flawlessly. That was a perfect example to him. And while you mentioned your book, I'm going to go take a piss. So Chad, can you take over?
Yep.
No, Brad, I would say at the end, though, I have 3 chapters on selecting service providers, how you select an advisor, a TPA, record keeper, and a CPA firm. And I've got like 15 or 20 questions that plan sponsors should ask each one of those types of service providers. And, I think RFPs are kind of a joke, to be honest with you, just because I don't think plan sponsors, like, they get a boilerplate TPA or TPA, a boilerplate RFP, and they may ask good questions, but they don't know what they're doing. So they don't even know how to interpret the answers.
Yeah, it depends on who's running the RFP.
100%, Chad. And I think the questions that I put in there were really, and I put not just the questions, but here's what you're looking for. That might be a resource for you to use. There's actually some really good. I reference a lot of the AICPA study that was done a few years ago, where they identified with the quality, the quality center, basically the AICPA went in and looked at plans and where a lot of the DOL operational failures. Maybe it was the DOL that did it.
Yeah, there's a good study on that.
Yeah, that you should be with a specialist CPA firm. We see this all the time. I would love to get more of you, like more people like you, with our clients, because we see CPA firms all the time that maybe they audit 5 or 6 plans. They don't know what they're doing, but they don't want another CPA to come in to audit the plan because they know 3 years from now or 2 years from now, they're going to be bidding on the tax and the audit work as well. But, I believe just like a specialist advisor, a specialist TPA, like you should hire as a plan sponsor, hire a specialist auditor. And
Brad, we'll send him your contact information.
Yeah,
perfect.
we connected on LinkedIn, but Brad, I actually think when you look at the evidence and the data from the DOL studies, there's a big difference. It shows a difference between an auditor. I think the number was like 100 plans. If you audit 100 plans or more, the number of deficiencies goes down dramatically from firms that are under that. And there was that small kind of auditor initiative where the DOL was coming in and trying to find plans that were audited by non-specialist CPA firms. Am I right about that?
It's a big error rate when you get to that certain level. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. But the comments you said about me talking to my clients about, talking to them about the specialists and stuff, those are great. And I'm going to take that.
They trust you more than they trust us. If they will listen, they will listen to you. Just like with my relationships with the client, and I'm sure the other guys on here. If I go to a client and I say, look, I'm not getting paid to do this, but like, here's who you need to talk to. Trust me. Talk to them. They're good. They've done a great job for other clients. Just talk to them. My clients will listen to me because they trust me. Your clients trust you. And if you go to the mat for them and say, look, I care about you. I want to do what's in your best interest. You're not getting the best outcomes. And you're not getting the best outcomes because you're not with the best advisor. They're going to listen to you and take that into consideration. They may not do an RFP right away, but they will listen to you. And I would just have the courage to shoot straight with them. They'll listen to you because they trust you.
Perfect. I like it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for ripping on you
Brad. Good to
last
see you,
week
buddy.
on
Brad.
sports. I do love you, Brad. I love you very much.
You guys have a good
Justin,
one.
who do we got? Oh boy,
We
this
got
guy
Greg.
again.
Here we go.
Webby. Oh shit.
Greg is
This is-
not his gear.
Does the shirt count in the Webby room rating?
Yes,
I
it
don't
does.
know. Like Webb would have me wear the shirt and the sweatshirt. So with Webb, I'm gonna get, it could be points above and points below. You never know.
I want to be clear to the audience that's still tuned in. There's still a lot of you here. Is that it's not just Webby that gets to rate your background and your vibe. Everyone gets to rate it. So throw it out
It's
there,
called
1
the
to
Webby
10
room
scale. Yeah, it's just called the Webby room.
He
How you
might
doing,
sue us,
Greg?
though. He's got the trademark. Good. What's up?
Long time
brother?
no see.
Yeah, I
Greg?
love the Retireholics logo. I'm repping my baseball team here. I know
Ooh,
Josh.
I think we need to
Igso.
retire.
Is that the Mets?
Go Mets.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Didn't they
that might
say
be a
that
little-
Shea Stadium, isn't Shea Stadium the only place in America where you can get mugged standing on second base?
I knew Josh is gonna get. I wore this just for Josh. I knew it was gonna be tough.
Greg,
Um,
Greg, 1 second. Brandon, can you cue up some of the sports graphics you do? Because all right, go ahead, Greg.
The team, go sports!
I swear to God, that was me. I swear. I swear I never aired on.
Thank you, Brandon.
So my question today is for Josh Itzo. Josh, first of all, if I believe I heard correctly, you played baseball at Wake Forest, ACC baseball?
I did. Yep. Long time
Wow,
ago.
very impressive. Did you play against any other any major leaguers that we might know about?
I think we had my junior year in college. We had so I played against like JD Drew, Nomar Garciaparra.
You said against.
Veritek. I think we had my junior year. I think we had 25 guys drafted in the first 5 rounds of the Major League Baseball
Wow.
draft.
Very
Wow.
nice. Very nice.
Hey, Greg,
All right.
Greg, did I tell you I was once a professional surfer?
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I love the rivalry, for the record, the rivalry between JD and Josh. Like, it starts, everyone needs to listen to the podcast because it gives the context. Like, you coming into the show, there's like this like subtext and like underground like tension. And I love it. It's awesome. Webby room rating. Yeah.
What?
All right. I'll ask my question. I'll get the
I
hell
can't
out of
vote.
here because nobody wants to hear my dumb sports questions.
Nice, Brandon. I like that.
But all I have to ask is, Josh, DH or no DH? Thank you.
God damn it.
I love that question, Greg. I was waiting for it.
Every week, every goddamn week.
I think we need to throw that up in a poll too.
That's a solid question. I would say that I'm probably more of a purist. I'm a non-DH guy.
You're a good man.
DH?
I mean, how can you have a half a player, right? You can if you can hit the ball, you can feel the ball, right? I mean, that's
You want to know why the DH? You know why the DH sticks around?
Yeah, go ahead.
The strongest union in the world is the Major League Baseball Players Association, and it creates jobs for guys. That's why the DH hangs around.
Yeah, Hackler, believe it or not, I'm a San Francisco Giants fan, NL West, and I do believe in the let the pitcher bat, man. Fuck it. Is there someone who feels differently? Chad, Mark, Justin?
Yes, we got JD to talk about sports. That's all I cared about this whole show. Listen, all this 401k stuff and CITs and acrosins, blah, 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 blah. But now we got JD to talk about sports. That's all
How do
I
I get a
cared
shirt?
about.
Greg,
Aaron
how do I
says it
get
right,
Greg,
but
how do I get a shirt?
Oh, good
talk to
question.
JD.
You gotta be a chat bar,
bro.
Why do
Yeah,
not
why,
every one of our
Josh?
guests not get a shirt?
you gotta be a chat bar champion. And Josh, you'll never win.
Anyways, Aaron's got a good point. but
I gotta donate
support.
$20 to pepsuck.com or whatever.
Right.
Yep,
.org.
there you go.
Those are good. Hey, those are good people doing the Lord's work. Do not talk badly about them. All right, Greg.
And Greg,
thanks.
don't worry about what JD says. I control this shit. You're on every week. You have a question.
Joey, you're my favorite. You've always been my favorite member of NSYNC. And that stuff I said about the Beatles, let's be honest, you guys are really more like NSYNC. So that's all I gotta say.
Oh,
Thanks, buddy.
it kind of,
Greg.
Bye, Greg.
that kind of hurts.
All right, Brandon, bring on Tony. And then Carl, by the way, you've had a lot of great questions between Bundle and Unbundled.
Carl gave us like a 7 out of 10 for the show. Come on, Carl.
Yeah, that's okay, though.
Amanda.
Carl, I want to
Amanda.
bring you on next.
Early.
Amanda, don't be a wussy and leave early. We're gonna stay up all night here doing this.
You put our show on for 3 hours. Come on.
By the way, to comment on the DH question, because that was really an
Can't
important
leave it
one.
alone. Can
I'm
feeling the air.
Bring
I'm
on
feeling the air.
Tony.
Hey, I got one opportunity to pinch run in college as a pitcher, and I got thrown out at the plate with 2 outs and a ground ball
slow.
at third base. Like it was a bad situation that I should not have broken for the plate. Pitcher should not hit.
Tony!
Should
Oh
be
my
the
God. Tony, I didn't know you were coming on.
Yeah,
What
that's
up,
Where's the
dude?
cats?
You're fucking slow, dude.
I love
Tony,
how-
where's the cats, man?
There's one down there in the bottom, I think.
Does Tony know he's muted?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, Tony, you're
Rookie
muted.
Move, dude.
You're
Your
muted,
cats
buddy.
would know that.
There we go.
There he is.
There he is.
And there's a little kitty.
Yeah, I saw him.
I
Or
didn't
her.
see it.
I had to bring out the catnip to get him
It worked.
on the show. It did work.
What do you got for us, Tony?
You need to call
You
me
know,
back.
Josh, I really loved your insights, the high bar that you're operating at. I just got 2 things to say. These are just generalizations. If it's free, you are the product. That's in our industry. Service is free, you're the product. Now, let me throw something out on that. From the advisor or the BD point of view. If you're engaging services that are, quote, free, you're a fiduciary. What does that mean? Think about that. Other than that, it's if you're not disclosing your fees, you're hiding your fees.
Yeah.
Amen.
That's all I got to say. That's it. That's signing out.
So
Love
Tony,
you,
let me
buddy.
ask you. Let me ask you real quick because I like that comment. Do you think as an industry we hide behind disclosure? Disclosure is just data and information. Like transparency is actually taking that information, and putting it in a
Great
consumable, simplified way so that people understand it in plain industry. We always talk about disclosure, but
Right.
I think disclosure is a half measure. What do you think about that, Tony?
Well, I think disclosure, there can be a regulation on disclosure. And then you have big money lawyers who say, well, we can get around this and we can maybe disclose something on page 67 in small print. So I think really it means, plans aren't free. Someone's paying for them. Everybody's paying for something. Why are you hiding it? Disclose your fees and sell yourself on value, what you're bringing to the table. And if you're not doing that, you're hiding.
Tony, generally, I would agree with you, but I feel like in the last decade, there are a few providers that are starting to give these plans away because they have a bigger picture in mind, kind of as Josh mentioned earlier. They're going to capitalize on other lines of service. And now the K plan has become something that they're going to make $2,000 a year off of. And they're okay with that. So that was different a decade ago. I feel like we're getting to the point now where people are starting to give plans away.
Well, Tom, I think there, though, what you're saying is, what they're realizing is we get the plan, but we get a lot more than the plan.
Mhm.
That lays the data, Josh. is
Fair,
how it
yeah.
works. This is a whole spider web that that a plan has a certain aspect of data that goes in something that fits into this other big spider web that other people capitalize on. And that's where the data is important. That's why they're doing this.
Disclosure will evolve. right? So it's like,
And
yeah,
that's-
sure, you're
Have
going to be
we-
able to.
JD, have we evolved in the last 10 years on disclosure? Maybe, but maybe not. I don't.
No.
Disclosure is a
bit.
joke.
No.
Disclosure is a joke.
This goes back to Josh's.
Yes.
Yes. This goes back to Josh's kind of statement on it. And I agree with his statement on that disclosure sucks. My point is that, Chad, when the plan is free, they're going to have to tell you about why it is free, right?
They should have to, but we've seen Paychex not do that for years.
Well, good point. But
But Tony nailed it. Tony nailed it. If it's free, you're the product. Think about just with technology, right? When you can sign up and you can download an app for free, it's not free. Facebook isn't free. They're taking all of your data and they're monetizing that. Like, I love Tony's comment of, if it's free, you are the product. There's a really interesting, I listen to a ton of podcasts just because I'm into it, but I've heard a really interesting narrative recently around, should you be able to license your data to technology providers? Hey, you pay me $250 a month, and you can have my data and do whatever you want with it. Like,
you as an individual, yeah.
You control your data, and you can determine whether or not to sell it.
Interesting.
And get compensated.
That's very interesting. But let me ask you this: you said earlier, Josh. You said that you said that the disclosures suck, and that people, you need to just tell them, right? You need to be transparent. You need to sit down that committee and explain the fees of them. But I don't think the government can mandate that, Josh. They can't say, 100%. Hey, look, we can't make it a 36-page thing. You need to go in there and tell them what it is face to face. So that's why disclosures exist. They should exist. It's common sense. It's the way you do it.
Disclosures don't disclose, Jake. That's where the players come in. Nobody.
They disclose. They don't explain.
Have you ever tried?
Tell the participant, this is costing you X amount. That never happens.
Right. You can't legislate morality, right? You can't. That's 100%. You cannot. You can't do that. So, you know, a lot of RIA, well, not a lot, all RIAs, right? With the form CRS recently.
You should trademark that, Josh. You can't legislate morality.
Well, I didn't come up with that. I heard that from somebody else.
Oh shit.
None of the stuff I come up with is original. I just curate it. Right. But if I looked at, so my next door neighbor is the president of a big RIA, like a $4 billion RIA, really good dude.
Is that a humble brag again? Is that a humble brag?
No.
Wait. Stop.
Dude, how are you humble bragging about my neighbor?
Like, Josh, you're trying to tell us the neighborhood you live in. You're like, whoa, my neighbor's $1 billion.
Okay, I can see that. No. That was not my intent was to say this.
I'm just.
Are you going to throw up in his yard too?
He was my complex manager at Morgan Stanley back in the day, and so he knows that whole game. And he was telling me that I think it was Morgan Stanley, one of the big brokerage firms. You know, our form CRS is like 3 pages. One of the big brokerage firms, it was like 120 pages. If you need 120 pages to disclose all the conflicts you have, as a client, whether you're a plan sponsor or whether you're an individual, like, you probably should ask yourself, if somebody needs 120, pages to disclose all the ways they can screw me, I probably should look somewhere else. It goes back to Tony's point.
Interesting point.
Can I tell you guys?
What about that? You sign a service agreement, and then you get the contract with the 126 pages 30 days later. That doesn't seem right.
Well, that's an issue.
Right?
Who reads disclosures? I don't read disclosures.
Nobody does. They trust. Have any of you, and I'll go to you, Mark. You've never been in this position. I was going to say, have you ever been with a client with a contract that's 100 pages with like 19 of those little sticky fluorescent sign here tabs, and you hand it to them and you look at them? It's a weird moment where it's like, they have to trust you because they're not going to ask you about that entire document as it goes. So it's this weird kind of moment where you're like, you just got to trust me, man. This is legit. This is good. But Mark, go ahead. What was your comment? Your thought?
Josh asked if we read disclosures, and I said, yeah, I do.
You read them.
I read your book.
Solid, Mark.
Pretty much like reading a disclosure.
Did you
stay awake? I know, seriously.
No.
One of it actually was like the 120 page disclosure.
No, I thought your podcast was the audible version of your book, and that wasn't the case. So
I want to be a non-industry person, and I want to be simple-minded here. And Tony,
You're very simple-minded, JD.
Thank you,
JD,
thank
you
you.
have accomplished everything that you want to.
Let me embrace that then.
Ideal client.
Let me embrace that then and completely get like, yes, I should be able to read it and understand like what I'm paying. But here's the problem with that is that it's so complex. And a lot of those record keepers have so many different relationships with so many different investment providers. And Josh, hold up. Yeah, you could wipe off the chessboard and start all over, but that's the way it is right now. Like all these interconnections have already been built. So when you ask me to give a disclosure, it needs to be 36 pages because it's fucked up. And there's a lot of different shit that's going on. And,
JD,
and
to your
so I'm,
point.
as a business, let me finish, Chad. As a business, I'm trying to comply and I'm trying to be like, okay, let me make sure that I explain everything. So I get my attorneys involved and we try to explain everything. And so I get it. I think what needs to happen is people like Josh and Tony need to create a summary to let people know like plain English
Here's
what's going on. But anyways,
I
Chad.
got it. Here's a summary. I'm a Canadian. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to quote a great Canadian hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, who talked to somebody, I can't remember his name, early in his career, and he said, if you take care of business on the ice, everything off the ice will take care of itself. I would say the same, that if you're working in the best interest of your clients, everything's going to be okay. But the reality is our industry, 3% of the people will not commit to working in the best interest of their clients. That's the fiduciary versus the advisor broker. I mean, correct or not?
Is that really happening?
Yes.
My thought to Tony's comment there is the best interest of the client. Yes, we should all be doing so. And I would hope that we all do so, but we're talking about the understanding of a disclosure. And even if you're doing what is right, the average working American is not going to understand what we're trying to put in front of them.
No
To
way.
JD's point, even if we literally quantified it by $1,000 increment, like we tend to do, hey, for every $1,000 you have invested in the plan, here's your asset-based charge. So that's equivalent to this and a cost. Do you think a single freaking working person then converts that to what their account balance is and looks at what they're actually paying?
I don't think we should have them have to do that math. I think we should be operating on higher level as a fiduciary operating in the best interest of our client so that they don't have to worry about the minutiae.
At the end of the day, we make it, the industry makes it too, like, think about this. The industry, and we're all like, we make it too hard, right? It's like a scavenger hunt for people to actually get all the information they need to make a decision. Chad, I think you make a great point. You know, it's funny, a number of years ago in 2012, when fee disclosure came out, this was a huge win for my clients. It's funny, a lot of the things I've done in my career, the simplest stuff winds up having a bigger impact than anything else I do. But I created a spreadsheet for every client in 2012, and it locked every cell, but it had the fund expense, it had the record keeping charge, and it had the advisory fee. And all a participant had to do was put their account balance in each fund, and it did all the math for them. And it was funny. I got a lot of feedback from my clients. They were like, oh man, our people love that spreadsheet, you know, because it summed up and was like, look, you're paying $789 and people in your account each year.
People used it.
Down quickly, right?
Literally, I mean, did everybody use it? No, probably everybody.
I don't think anybody freaking.
But I mean, I had my committee saying, committees saying like, hey, we had people actually come to us and say,
the committee uses it. The committee wants
maybe.
The employees aren't touching it.
But I guess my point is, the spirit of that is, how do we help our clients? In 2009, I was at FI 360, and one of the things I talked about was like, transparency is your friend. If you can help clients and you can talk in real terms with plan sponsors and you can help them understand fees, not in the gobbledygook but in real plain English. And you can basically say, like a great example, hey, we do fee benchmarking for you each year. I can give you an objective opinion about Fidelity, about Vanguard. I can give you an objective opinion about your fund expenses. What I can't do is I can't give you an objective opinion about my own fee, because a cop's not going to give himself a speeding ticket. You know, I can give you data, but you have to determine for yourself whether or not you think that I'm worth the fee that I charge you. I think most people who listen to this or watch this show do this, but transparency and talking about fees, it's the number one thing you can control. And if you can talk about that in conflicts, you actually build trust with clients. You don't destroy trust, because most people think they're getting screwed. And if you're upfront and you're honest with them, you actually strengthen the relationship. You don't damage it.
One of my highest revenue producing clients is one, and I'm backing you up, Josh, where I've gone into that room with the 13 people on the fiduciary committee, and they've known year after year, hey, this is how much I'm making. And it's that flat fee that you're talking about. And because I have that conversation with them, I feel very secure in that relationship, you know, because I know that I've looked them in the eyes and I've had that conversation. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I would actually give this advice to anyone out there that's listening in, that if you're not prepared when you walk into your client to answer this question, if that leader, that business owner, that CFO, that whomever looks at you and says, hey, Joe or Sally, how much do you make per year on our plan? And you can't immediately answer that question and look them in the eye and confirm that it makes sense and that it's prudent, and because it lines up with the services that you provide, then you're being fucked up. Like that's not cool. And that's not how it should work. And that's not how our industry should go. So Tony, we totally agree with you. I just feel like disclosures get a little muddy.
I got one thing to say, and then I'm up. And based on what you just said, and Josh, what you said too. So if you're talking to a CFO, you disclose, you explain fees, because they get it and they appreciate it. And they go, I've never heard that before. Thank you. You got the case yourself. You're presenting to an HR person. You talk about retirement readiness and how everybody in the plan is going to feel good. But no disclosure.
Mic drop.
He's out. Mic drop. I'm done.
Mic drop.
I'm done.
Fees is always interesting, man.
Here's the thing. If you don't control the fee conversation as an advisor, as a TPA like you guys, you're going to get put on the defensive at some point.
For sure. And you should.
You better control the conversation. You better fight that battle on your terms. Not, so I live in Maryland. There's Gettysburg, right? The battle with Civil War. And there's a Civil War battlefield where you look at, it was Pickett's Charge. And if you look at Pickett's Charge, right, you go there, you go on the battlefield, and you've got this elevation, these rocks. And what happened in Pickett's Charge is, I think it was the Union soldiers got just gunned down because they were trying to run up this hill, and the Confederates were sitting up literally on top of these rocks and just picking people off. Like, you need to fight battles that you have from the high ground, not from the low ground. If you're not talking about fees in a really honest, transparent, plain English way with your clients, you're fighting from the low ground, not the high ground.
Well, Josh, can I get super
Greg, it's PSCBC.
Greg, I love you. I love you.
I like too. Josh is not a sales guy, but he's a master of analogies.
Josh,
what a sales guy is.
Can I back you up from a kind of soapboxy vibe in terms of our industry? I feel like if you were to ask plan sponsors and participants how they feel about 401k fees and whether they understand them or don't understand them, we all know the answer to that question. And so I would argue that to jump on Josh's bandwagon, if we can push for that as an industry and change that over time, it's just better for all of us, right? Like to be looked at. Josh said something that will stick with me for a long time. When Brad came on, you were like, CPAs are trusted by their clients, man.
Yeah.
Like they care about them. Well, you know what? We should fucking be like that. Like Jesus Christ.
Always been the thought.
CPAs are a profession. We are not viewed, I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
we are not viewed as a profession. And it's because of the compensation conflicts.
Well, I'll
it's gotta
defend
change.
that and say we're not you, Josh. I took JD's point literally in saying the TPA should be considered that way. We are the CPAs of the retirement plan space. We should be considered
No,
that.
I
meant-
think you
I meant
guys are
both.
viewed. I actually think you guys are viewed more like CPAs. Advisors are just viewed as like sales professionals.
The one who moves the needle the most, in my opinion, tends to be the advisor. So that's
I agree.
a fall down in our industry. If that is
So let me just give you a quick little example, and I'm a humble brag right here, right? So I had a client. We had a committee meeting 2 days ago, and I've worked with them since Q2 2011. When we took over the engagement, it was a $43 million plan. They were paying 99 basis points. I know because I just did all the analysis. They were paying 99 basis points all in at $43 million. Okay, so about call it $400,000 a year in fees. We went in, we charged a fixed. We changed from an asset-based advisory fee to a fixed fee. We renegotiated with their provider.
What was your fee? What was your fee ballpark?
When we took over the engagements, and in full disclosure, we acquired a firm that this client was a client of. So it's not like I went and won. I won it. Like we acquired the firm, we took over. They were charging 20 basis points, and so it was like actually it was $44 million because it was like $88,000 a year, and I was like, well, I'm decent, but I ain't worth $88,000 a year. So we restructured their fee and went to a fixed fee from an asset based, and we cut $25,000 off, something like that.
Okay.
We went back to the provider. We renegotiated with the provider. Now they were dealing with a lot of outflows because they were having a lot of turnover. And so we did an analysis. I did an analysis that said, hey, you guys should have an asset-based record-keeping fee because what's happening is you're laying off a bunch of people with balances. They're rolling out. You're hiring people to replace them at zero balances. You should be an asset-based fee. And I'm a big per capita.
You're anti of that.
I'm anti-asset based, but in their case, when I did the analysis, I was like, you know what, that makes sense. And then we over a period of years redesigned their fund lineup and went very, very passive. So I met with them 2 days.
Have to, Josh. We're gonna have you back like 6 months from now and talk about this whole passive obsession you have. But continue on.
So here's what happened. 2 days ago, I met with them and I did the analysis. And between the fund changes, we just renegotiated with their record keeper, moved them to a fixed fee because they've had some significant asset growth. All in, including our fee, the plan's doubled in 10 years. It's gone to 85 million. Our fee, the record keeping fee that we just renegotiated, and we saved them like 60 grand a year in record keeping fees, and fund expenses, it's 22 basis points all in. So when they were at $44 million, they were paying 99 basis points. They're at $85 million. They're paying 22 basis points. And the analysis I did for them, I said, look, if we wouldn't have gotten involved, you'd been paying, let's just say status quo, 100 basis points on 85 million. You'd be paying $850,000 a year. You're paying $200,000 a year in total fees now. So that's $650,000. And I discounted it back with a present value. I said, that is accretive to every one of your participants. We talk about disclosure, but I would argue that negotiation and really creating the mechanism to understand fees from a corporate finance perspective and not from a basis points perspective, you can get mad props with clients when you do that. It's just, there's something magic about putting fees into a corporate finance mechanism,
especially in a competitive situation when you're able to compare. When you're not pitching and you're comparing, it's a whole lot easier to show fees in that format.
Can I also tell you, Chad, to back you up? I've been in this business a little bit, and I've experienced those situations that Josh is talking about. And I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but you're the hero to everyone when that happens. but 5 years later, when 50% of the decision makers have left and HR has changed, and they don't give a shit about what you did 5 years ago and the money that you saved them. And so I think the best advice, and I'm sure Josh will back this up, is you need to educate your plan sponsor on what you've done for them. But are you going to walk in every year and tell them that you saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars like 3 years ago? Probably not. So it's a weird world we live in. You do.
I do.
All right, Jania said the same thing.
You guys know Ann Schleck, right? Ann Schleck is one of my favorite people in this industry. I think she's one of the smartest, brightest, like she's a rock star. Ann Schleck is big about you have to resell your value. And I agree with you, JD, that clients don't remember 3 years ago. But I will tell you, every new committee member, and some of our larger clients, just because they're bigger companies, they get turnover in the C-suite. And so we constantly, that's why I like smaller plans. I like the 10 to $30 million space. I love because they're
Mark likes smaller plans like that too. Is that your small
they're closely
plan,
held, right? Mark, they don't have turnover.
Those ones are cake to me, man. You gotta
knock it out.
I feel like
it's like a tap in, like a 10-inch tap in putt, like, right, Mark?
Exactly.
Yeah. Go on, Josh.
Larger plans. They're getting called on all the time. They're getting turnover in the C-suite. So you got to resell. But I will tell you, every new committee member that comes on, we send them all the minutes. We have a call with them to kind of explain, generally speaking, like, hey, here's what the history, the body of work, here's what we've done. I mean, I do that. I do a feed trend analysis for every client. Our team does, like, hey, over the past 5 years, 10 years, your fees were here. Now they're here. Like we resell the crap out of what we've done. We show, hey, we convinced you to do automatic enrollment at 6%, escalation to 15%. Here's what, when we got hired, your numbers were, here's what they are now. Like Josh, you got to sell the crap out of what you've done.
That's really smart advice. And so in counter to what I just said, I agree with I think every advisor should do what you just talked about is, hey, you won the business 5 years ago. Remind them at your review meetings how much money they've saved since they hired you. That's phenomenal.
It should be part of that review process.
Yes.
It's not the highlight, and JD, you've said this for years, advisors should be able to quantify the impact they're making on the plan. They should be able to come in an annual fiduciary review and say, these are the metrics that I'm reviewing and this is what I've accomplished. And if fee compression is one of those metrics you want to highlight, even if it went back 5 years, it should be something that you highlight 5 years later.
Can I ask you guys?
Actually, Jania, you mentioned Jania earlier, right? Jania Stout. Jania is a freaking rock star. Like, actually, in a sales head-to-head situation, Jania totally gives me nightmares because she is a beast. Like, you don't want to compete against Jania. But she was on Michael Kitz's podcast a number of years ago.
I listened to that one. Great,
really good.
Great fucking episode. That was phenomenal.
Great episode. She's a rock star.
She gave real insights into her business model and operations. Yeah, great.
Absolutely. And she was big on, and I would say she probably got this, we all want to think we're original thinkers. Like none of us are really original thinkers. I will say that like the client summary, the review, I would attribute that not to Jania, who is a rock star, but more to Ann Schleck. Ann Schleck for years has been saying, you have to go back and do like an annual summary. I will tell you that in my experience, most people probably agree, clients, because they don't think about this stuff the way we do, they forget all the stuff you've done for them. So being able every year to go back and say, hey, in Q1, we did this, this, and this. In Q2, we did this, this, and this. I think that's a really smart way for advisors, for TPAs, to communicate the value of what we're delivering to you on an annual basis. And I think that annual kind of review of, hey, here's all the stuff we accomplished is a really smart thing to do. We try to do it because we want to remind clients because they're not going to remember all the good stuff we've done.
I don't think advisors do that enough. I also don't think like when you're sitting with that fiduciary committee, you also need to remind them of all the participants you've dealt with.
Yeah.
They don't have eyes on that. They don't have optics on that. They don't know that you took a call on Saturday at 10 a.m. and talked with Matt about what investment he should choose. And so I think advisors would be well served to JD is a cookie cutter thinker, Bryant Lester. What the fuck?
I can't think out of the box, JD.
Can I re-vote for
Bryant?
The chat? Can I re-vote?
Yes, you can. That was solid. I do love that, Bryant.
He said a couple zingers in the post show.
If I were you guys, maybe you do this, but like for
write
some
a book,
complex testing.
Oh, Tony.
Right,
equals shitless.
What I would do is I would say, hey, we, through our, we did cross-tested testing or whatever, a new comp or whatever, we were able to get your executives X percent. Like I would highlight that, when you use some of that complex stuff, like I would highlight that because I think that is
Josh,
the right decision maker.
Josh,
that's expected.
Josh, when you're saying that and I'm nodding my head, yes.
Yeah.
All I'm really thinking about is how Bryant Lester thinks I'm just a cookie cutter response guy. Like I don't have ideas of my own. I'm blown away right now by that, Bryant.
JD, obviously you don't understand what sarcasm is.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
So
JD, did you see my comment?
JD, let me hook you up, brother. In the Bible, right? There's a book in the Old Testament called Ecclesiastes.
Oh, you're talking about a book that you didn't write.
I didn't write
you.
But I'm going to reference in Ecclesiastes, it says that there's nothing new under the sun. None of us are original thinkers. All the stuff we've done, we're curators of really good ideas. So,
Josh,
you're cookie cutter.
You pull on so many quotes. It's solid, like legit. I'm not even kidding. I'm not ripping at you.
Yeah.
It's solid how you pull on those, man. Like I can't even remember what happened 5 minutes ago.
I meant to send this to the guys. I was listening to a book on tape while I was on a walk this week that was eye opening to me. And the three of you that know me so well will understand why I struggle with this. It said that in order to be creative, you can't think about the how. You have to think about the why and the what. And it was Vishen Lakhiani. And you know that I'm so fucking procedural focused. There has to be a how to get to a why we're doing what we're doing or a how we're going to do what we're going to do. You, JD, and Josh, I'll throw you in this, and many others that have been on here tonight, are folks that just look at something in the future as a vision. We talked about EvoShare. I think they're in the same boat, and say, we're just going to fucking do it. We're going to do this.
All right.
I don't know how we're going to get there, but we're going to do it. I can't do that. I need free thinkers. I need people who think out of the box because I will never be that human being.
But free thinkers, Chad, honestly, struggle with execution and implementation.
But that's why they need
what Chad's there for.
So I'm going to get philosophical for a minute. Most people think about like their strengths. They undervalue their strengths and they overvalue their weaknesses, right? And most people, what they want to do, and the way we condition people is try to improve your weaknesses. Well, you know what? There's only a couple of things I do well. I have a pretty dramatic amount of shortcomings. If I try to improve my weaknesses, at best, I'm mediocre at best. So I would rather double down on the things I'm really good at because those are the handful of things I can be excellent at. But I need to pair myself up with somebody who basically is really good at my weaknesses. And that's, if you think about your team, that's probably why you guys work well, is because you have a mix of strengths. And if everybody focuses on what they do best.
Is that really Bryant Lester? I don't think it's Bryant Lester just said, EvoShare, another cookie cutter company. I don't know. It doesn't sound like Bryant. Josh, that was phenomenal.
Tom, can I say real quick? I saw 10,000 hours. You hear that all the time. Malcolm Gladwell in Tipping Point talked about the 10,000 hour rule. He actually totally misinterpreted the data and the research. That's
bullshit because I believe in that shit. 10,000 hours makes a lot of sense.
It's good that you believe in it, but it's actually not accurate. The data
Here comes
read the
Brandon.
book.
Here comes Brandon, the all-knowing
I read the
producer.
book.
have to wait.
I read the book for the guy who did the research that Malcolm Gladwell referenced, and he actually said he totally whiffed. So I'll just say that.
Brandon,
I'm just
agreed.
confirming he's 100% right. 10,000 hours was misinterpreted.
Malcolm Gladwell did write more books than I did, and quite frankly, ain't nobody going to confuse me with Hemingway. My writing is actually pretty shitty.
Josh,
My point, JD, my point of saying that is to let us all know that you don't have to see a path to what you're dreaming. Like, it's okay to be a free thinker.
Great.
It's okay to look at what you want to accomplish and just go. Just go. You don't have to see a path to get there. We're talking about changing the retirement plan space. Just go. Do it.
Chad, I love that you get in that headspace, being the type A logical person that you are. So I'm feeling you 1,000,000%. And I do agree that that's where my brain goes, is that I look at like what I want the finish to look like. And sometimes it's vague and weird, but it's an emotion, like an artistic emotion of like where I want it to be. And then you just set out on that path. And I was actually running on a treadmill when I listened to Josh talk with Fielding at Cap Trust. And I was blown away at how he was talking about how he just set a goal of like, oh, I want to this is my 5-year goal. Like, let's see if we can 10x our revenue, and do this or that. And he's like, it was so authentic and kind of humble the way he was talking about it. And he was just like, it's like he didn't really care about the details. He just set a goal for himself. And he's like, I want to get there. Let's see what happens. Let's do it. And then Josh, he crushed it. He gets there and then he goes further. And I'm blown away by that. I want to ask you, Josh, people like Chetney, people like Fielding, people like, who else have we had on the show that's like this just massive success where these guys just, I think make like multiple millions of dollars a year running their businesses. What's in their DNA? That why? I don't know Josh, what is your annual revenue? What do you make per year?
You can't ask that question, JD.
What sets these guys apart from me where they just want to conquer the world? Like, what the fuck?
Well, I can't give you the actual, I will say that
I'm kidding. I wasn't trying to.
We've roughly 50x our revenue since year one.
That was 2004.
In 15, and so 2005 was into 2004. So, we've roughly 50x our revenue. We've Wu-Tang Financial. Buy nuclear bombs.
Chad, can you get the sales team fucking cracking? What the fuck? 50x?
We need balance here, JD.
So let me. Can you guys see this book right here? I would highly recommend.
Did you write it?
No,
holding it up.
Okay.
Holding it up.
Hey, you even got the signature tabs. It's great.
I do. So I take a lot of notes, and I do these little tabs when I
nerd alert.
Total nerd alert. There's an incredible guy named Naval Ravikant. He's a tech investor, Silicon Valley, but he's like a philosopher. If you just search for him, NAV.
I think I know you're talking about.
He's legit. He's got some really cool philosophies, but he interviewed this guy, Matt Ridley. This guy's written a bunch of different books. He was a journalist for The Economist. But it's called How Innovation Works and Why It Flourishes in Freedom. This is one of the coolest books I've ever read. I'm about halfway through right now. I've listened to a couple of podcasts with this guy. And here's what I would say, and it goes back to your question, JD, is, we tend to think about like the big names in the industry. We think about Fielding Miller. We think about Bill Chetney, right? Those were the names you threw out. But if you look at innovation throughout history, and this guy goes all the way back through like the Italian Renaissance, what you typically see is there is a difference between invention and innovation. He uses a really great analogy. He says that a duck and a beaver were sitting in the water looking up at the Hoover Dam. And the duck looks at the Hoover Dam and says, wow, what an incredible creation these humans made. And the beaver says, Yeah, but it was really my idea to start with, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Invention is creating something new, but innovation is actually figuring out a way to deliver it cost effectively to the masses. And so here's what I would say is he would argue that the idea of the single man or single woman philosophy of like kind of the hero mentality, it was Fielding Miller, it was Bill Chetney, is actually not the case. When you look at innovation throughout history, it's really groups of people who've come together working on similar issues and feeding off one another and sharing ideas over time. And I bet if you asked Fielding, I know for sure he would say, look, I had the idea and I kind of set the environment and the culture, but I had an incredible number of people that have
I get
along
that,
the way.
Josh, I totally get that. Of course, you don't get to high levels on your own. So that goes without saying. I mean, but I think it's important to spend time on that. Like, yeah, it's a teamwork. It's a putting people in place. It's collaboration. It's doing, we've done that on a small scale at our company, right? My point is more like, and I don't want to open up too much of my own personal life here, but I'll give it a shot. Like, I look at things, I'm like, oh, can I get to this level? And I lead a great fucking life right now, right? My company does well. I own a fabulous home in a wonderful part of California. And
is that a humble brag?
Yes.
Can I just say for the record, it's totally a humble brag.
It's actually not a humble brag. It's like a true humble brag in that I'm bragging, but yet there's someone like Chetney, someone like Fielding that's like, and I wouldn't say they would do this, but they're like, where you set your goals are ridiculous. Okay, as an example, I live in a phenomenal house. My house is probably worth $2 million. Phil Mickelson lives like a mile from me in Rancho Santa Fe. His house is like $28 million, right? And so I walk through my neighborhood, walking my dog, like, I live in a fancy neighborhood. And then those people over there are like, you're a fucking joke, bro. And I want to too capitalist here. I'm trying to put it back to the business side. It's like I focus on my business and say, Chad, Mark, Justin, can we get to here? Like, this would be great. And then I meet people like Chetney and I hear about people like Fielding and I'm like, what is it about these people that like, instead of setting it here, they like set it fucking here.
Yeah.
And I'm blown away by their.
Here's what I would say though, JD. Here's what I would say. And we're all guilty of this. You guys are, we are. I get interviewed like a lot of people probably. I get interviewed, I'll have interviews and asking things, and even on like this show, right?
Still can't beat Tiger.
I don't tell you the crappy stuff that we do. I only talk about like, hey, here's the good stuff, right? And so that's in the industry. I always take like when I read stuff with a grain of salt. Like CapTrust is a kick-ass firm, but I will tell you, they got issues like you guys. Issues.
Everybody does. There's weakness.
Everybody does, but we don't talk about that. We only talk about like, hey, this is where we're crushing it. But the reality is, we all have issues.
To JD's point,
great point.
There are certain people that set their sights well beyond the vision that the average person can see.
Right.
And that was kind of my point earlier. Is like my vision is how can I accomplish this? So my sight is very narrow.
Craig.
JD is saying there are other people. JD's here. There are other people that say, I never even comprehend the how. Because I'm so far out of the realm the rest of you are in that my sights are well beyond. Think of Elon Musk. My sights are well beyond what you can comprehend. I'm going to build a hole underneath the most populated city in the world, and I'm going to find a way to travel people in their car. Yeah. Like, there's just some gnarly thought from certain people. What is it different about them? I think that's what JD was actually. There's no answer to that, JD.
But I like Josh's response. What Josh was trying to say.
Call it boring. Yes, Carl, call it boring.
No, Josh was trying to say to me, I think, was like, hey, don't don't admire them so much. Like they have faults, there's things going wrong, they're struggling. But you're right, Chad. I was more just talking about like, why do they put the hoop so high? You know, like why is it so high to shoot the basketball into? And I've tried to ask them.
Sports with JD right now.
Think about leverage. No, think about leverage, right? At the end of the day,
I gotta go.
Where you build wealth and success, where you build wealth and success,
you know what they say.
Whatever it is, it's leverage. And you can leverage. There are 4 types of leverage. There is what I would call labor leverage, right? If I'm a lumberjack and I can cut down 1 tree a day and sell it for $200, and my time is worth $100, I've made $100 net income, right? But if I could get 10 lumberjacks working for me and I pay them $100 and I sell their product for $200, I've just made $1,000 a day. So you can leverage your time through labor. You can do it through capital, which a lot of us do, right? Especially on the investment side, the investment advisor, we're leveraging capital. Number three, I don't know what happened.
I'm sorry. Josh, this used to happen to me. I'd be talking like you are, and then one of the people in the show would like start laughing and be like, "Are they laughing at me? What's going on?" It's a goddamn chat bar, and it's just someone writing something hilarious in the chat bar. Greg goes, "What about EBITDA? What about?"
So here's the thing: you can leverage labor, capital, media, or code or technology. Those are the 4 things that you can leverage. If you want to build wealth, like you need to leverage one of those 4 things. You're not going to get wealthy by basically filling out your time. Like you need to get leverage.
Totally.
Those are the only 4 things that really can build leverage.
100%.
Labor, capital, media, or code. Like think about with you guys. I don't know what it's impacted your bottom line or your revenue, but I got to think you guys have grown your business by doing Retireholics, which is a pretty kick-ass show, and helping, stacking coins by helping and creating. You've used media, you create it one time, and it allows you to connect with advisors who ultimately are working with you and sending you business. You're getting leverage through this show. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I'll end it with this, and I'll answer your question and try to talk to some people in the audience in terms of what we do. I would also argue, Tony made a comment earlier that, wealth obviously isn't the answer to happiness, right? So, but I do believe that wealth can provide you some freedom.
Yep.
And freedom can provide you some happiness. And then, so that's why I'm a capitalist and I'm excited about that kind of stuff. And when I look at the Chetneys and the Fieldings, I'm like, I'm just in awe of them. But check this out. There's also like the day-to-day. And so I'm gonna leave you all with this. Chad, Justin, Mark, Brandon, myself, we do get to have fun in what we do. And we do get to make, good money compared to a lot of struggling people out there. And let's be sensitive to those people that are out there fucking just trying to get some food and stay in their apartment or whatever they got to do. And so I think that success is finding that balance in life where you get to experience life, you get to enjoy it, you get to have some fun with it, spend time with your family and do those things. I'm sorry to get all like motivational here, but and that can be driven by running a good, solid business. So whatever, I got to pee, and I love you guys. And I think
good stuff, Josh.
In life is important.
Really
Josh,
stuff.
you've been phenomenal.
This was fun, dude. I hope. I think the after, the after
We always
show
do.
Always.
was a little better than. I feel like I want to apologize. I feel like
Brandon will cut that down. Don't worry.
I feel like I underperformed on the.
Hey, honestly, it was good.
It
really
doesn't
was.
help when we made you sit in silence for the first 18 minutes either. So.
You did great. I think people love the fee conversation, which is what we did in the regular show. It's always really engaging and cool and different. So that's fine. We did good. Josh.
The after show, Josh, where we just sit here and we talk shit about the industry, good, bad, ugly, all of it. That's the best content. It always is. Because it's just us sitting, and that's what we want the show to be. It's just us sitting here ripping.
I think what you guys are doing, honestly, is somebody like my podcast is honestly, if I could figure out how to leverage some of the branding and the fun that you guys do, like your show is, it's pretty kick-ass. It's awesome. I love what you guys are doing. I just think, so much of our industry is
yeah, Tony,
just like boring, and you guys bring a lot of, color and entertainment, and, you make this memorable and, smart, easy, awesome, right? Isn't that your tagline?
Gosh, I like this guy. I'm
All right.
outside. My wife's gonna murder me, and I need to eat dinner. So.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Love you, man.
Hey, guys.
Peace out. See ya.
Bryant Lester, you are so
2 weeks.
better.
Lester needs to get on the show.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We have a guest.
I'm totally coming to new shows, and I'm totally getting into chat, and I'm gonna
They all
live
left us.
JD nonstop.
You should make it happen. All right, later.
Wolf Alice, peace out.
Under blue moon, I saw you. So soon you'll take me up in your arms. Too late to beg you or cancel it, though I know it must be the killing time. Unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will. Through the thick and thin, he will wait until you give yourself to him. In starlit nights I saw you, so cruelly you kissed me. Your lips a magic world, your sky all hung with jewels. The killing moon will come too soon. Fate up against your will. Through the thick.
Hey, Brian, you still
Great
here?
song, bro.
Thank you.
Wait, let's check out the Retireholics group text right now. That dude was solid. I liked him a lot. Me too, says Chad. Yeah,
was
he's
solid.
good. He's good. I fucked up. I should have given him a chance to do more shit. Anyways,
You need a lighter beverage, I think.
lighter. Well, the vodka's a little rough out of the cup.
Yeah.
But
So-
yeah, not my best performance. But yeah, he's
Right.
solid.
You
That's why I brought him on.
need to talk or something?
Is Bryant trying to?
He was chatting
Bryant's-
to me.
Bryant's so cookie cutter. I don't know if we want to have him on here.
Oh, he's probably typing something out.
I meant what I said. Like when I listen to that guy's podcast, I'm like, dude, he's very well spoken. Like he comes up with great words and challenges his guests. And if anything, he's like me sometimes where he talks too much. But as someone listening in, I was like, I love this.